experiences with our speakers who will help us see the gaming world in a completely new light. So sit tight and let's dive into the world of online gaming. I would like to now invite Mr. Anurag Batra, Editor-in-Chief and Chairman, Exchange for Media Group, to kindly come forward for the welcome address. Can we have his video, please?
Good afternoon. Welcome to this special afternoon. Today we are discussing gaming. Welcome to this inaugural Exchange for Media Gaming Summit. Gaming has become mainstream. The last 12 months have given all of us, our children, the young millennials, more time to be able to pursue their interests. Gaming is one of them. The average time spent by a gamer has gone up by multiple times in the last 12 months. Gaming is also becoming very important when it comes to marketers reaching out to millennials. Today, through the use of AR, VR gaming, interactivity is being built in a way that we couldn't have imagined it earlier. Also, gaming in terms of fantasy sports is growing. Gaming in terms of bringing gaming into education is growing. So the role of gaming in business, the role of gaming in our lives is growing. Clearly, if the engagement of customers, millennials with gaming is increasing, clearly marketers and businesses have taken note of it and have gamified whatever activities they're using to engage with millennials. So clearly the Exchange for Media Gaming Summit in some way brings all the stakeholders of the gaming world together and discusses where is gaming headed, where are millennials headed, what are the sub-trends in gaming. And gaming is an industry.
Thank you so much, Dr. Batra. Now, before we start the sessions for the day, we would definitely like to thank our partners. As we all know, without the support of its partners, no event is possible, not even a virtual one. So we'd definitely like to thank our partners for the event, co-powered by InMobi, driving real connections, and our co-partner for the event is India Today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a look at our partner audiovisuals before we start on with our first keynote address. Let's have the audiovisual.
Technology has always shaped how we communicate with one another. The wheel, the printing press, the Pony Express, the telegraph, the telephone, the computer, and mobile devices. Technology changes, yet one truth remains. We want our communications and interactions to be meaningful and have relevance. Today, however, driving real connections are easier said than done. But we help brands do that, to drive real connections. With our platform technology and exclusive mobile data, InMobi helps you understand, identify, engage, and acquire your customers. InMobi, driving real connections.
India is getting ready for its biggest esports championship. India Today Gaming presents Esports Premier League. 3 months, 8 teams, 1 championship. The battleground is ready. Are you? Do you have it in you? Can you be the next undisputed champion? Coming soon.
Once again, we'd like to thank our partners here. And ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about online gaming. So definitely would like to create a buzz online about this gaming summit, E4M Game On. We'd like you to join our online conversation. Keep tweeting to us using the hashtag E4M Game On. You can also send us questions to our speakers on whichever platform you're watching us on. Please comment, put it on the chat box. We'd definitely like to take it forward with all our eminent speakers. And starting right now, we're going to invite on screen the Chief Operating Officer of G2 Esports, Mr. Peter Mukha. He'll be talking about how COVID-19 impacted the esports industry. A very warm welcome to you, Peter. The screen is all yours.
Okay. Hello, everybody. As said already, my name is Peter Mukha, and thanks for having me here. And I'd like to give you kind of insight into our work and what we are doing and what G2 is all about. For those which are already familiar with esport environment, It might be some kind of too basic information that I'm sharing, but I want to give you an opportunity to understand, first of all, what we are, what the business model is about, before I jump into the COVID situation and what that impact is on us in 2020 and beyond. Let me share my screen. So I have prepared some slides. Maybe if you like a little bit, how does it work? Here we go. So that is about me, a little bit understanding why I'm here at G2 managing this company together with Carlos Rodriguez, named Ocelot, who he was a former professional player. My background is very much in sport, 11 years of Adidas, then moving into the entertainment industry towards Universal Music, leading here the business in Central Europe before I joined Activision, by the way, within the same holding, Vivendi Group, and was there in the company when the merger with Blizzard happened. Before I then joined the little tiny company Microsoft and leading there the retail business. After that, I decided this is enough of big companies, and I started to invest money and manage some startup environment. One of them was Semanto, a technology company around data. And ultimately, I met Carlos and I became the COO of the company. Altogether, I'm talking about 33 years in the industry or in different industry and managing different companies and businesses. That is about me. What it tells you is that I'm pretty old. So not representative of that industry, how you can see it. I mean, I like to say that this esport industry, first of all, gaming and esport is not exactly the same. Gaming is content of our industry, but not necessarily the same. But this is the biggest niche, I think, in the world, if you see what we talk about. There are about almost 2 million people in the world which are familiar with esport and interested in esport. And the question, why is it so attractive for so many brands? And you see that if you see and look into the community, we are talking most likely about the most attractive target group in the world for almost any brand in this world, because the audience is between 10 and 35. And these are the consumers of today and the future. And that's why many companies and brands have the ambition to be part of this esport industry. By the way, I predict that to be the fastest growing environment in the entertainment industry overall in the next coming years. What you see is about 5 years ago, the partners in this industry were very much endemic partners, but that has completely changed over the last 5 to 10 years already. So what you can see there is that the big sponsors from traditional sport are now moving into esport, and they're doing that with a lot of commitment, with a lot of budget behind it, and they do that with 100% opinion that this is the right way to spend their marketing budget in a very effective way. What you see as well, that traditional sport clubs are part of this esport industry as well. So they are building teams for different leagues as well. So they don't want to miss that train going forward. Bear with me because I have no idea why my computer is pretty slow. Why is a club? And why did I took the decision to put myself into a club, into a team environment? And I think there is nobody questioning the fact that we own the asset in this industry, and this is the players. And the players is what makes this industry this kind of attractive environment. We work closely together with league organizers, we work closely together with publishers, and we are present on all platforms. But the players, this is what makes this industry so appealing. So we own something which is the heart and more or less the asset of this entire industry. And that makes it so interesting for us to be where we are. What are we? So what is G2 about? First of all, it's important to mention is we see ourselves as part of entertainment. And the same way as we have professional teams which fight hard for good performance and success, the same way we are an entertainment company, a content producer. We are working closely together with our partners, and the ambition we have is we always want to be relevant in terms of what we produce. We want to be spot on in terms of what we prepare and distribute for our fans, for our community. And that's what we do together with our partners. The other thing about G2 is we are sometimes borderline in terms of how we communicate. We are always extremely empathetic in terms of what we bring across. We don't take ourselves too serious because we don't have not the intention to change the world, but we have the ambition to give some fun, to give entertainment into our community. That's what we are doing. So what you see, and to a certain extent, what makes us what we are and why are we so proud with the current setup. These are all the brands and names that you can see that we could win over the last 3 years for G2. These are definitely, and that is a conscious thing I want to say, we never speak about these guys about sponsors. Sponsors are brands and companies that show up in your office, leave the money on the desk and disappear. That's not our intention. We work extremely closely together with our partners. We do joint marketing activities. We have brand marketing campaigns with them. We are their content producer, so-called you could call us a media house for them in terms of production and distribution of any content. And the thing that we are 100% proud of is the fact we have never lost a partner. So whenever we started to work with people and we work with brands, we still work with them. We never lost anybody. And that makes us extremely proud and tells us that we must do certain things right. Overall, how is our business model? Well, how does it look like? And actually very similar to traditional sport. So very comparable with what football clubs, basketball clubs, cricket clubs, or whatever, what they are doing. So we work closely with partners, as I said before. This is the heart of our understanding what we are in close collaboration, working with other brands. We have income due to prize money, and thankfully our teams perform extremely well for a long time. We are not talking only about professional players. We are working with influencers, creators as well. And on the other end, we have typically, as any other sport club in the world as well, consumer products or merchandise, how you want to call it, both physical product as well as digital product. We work closely together with leagues. We share the success that we make together there. And we have, similar to sport clubs as well, media, income and revenue as well. For us, it's not that relevant being present on TV. For us, it's more important to be on relevant platforms. And that's what we do extremely intensively. Let me be proud again in that presentation. So after I said we are proud of the partners that we work with, the same way I think G2, and that's nothing to be too arrogant, one of the most successful teams ever in this industry. And we are present in 8 different games. Whenever we are present, we are, let's say, top 5 at least in the world. So we always try to get the best teams into our company, and we support them with whatever we can in order to make them successful. We allow them to train as much as they can. We try to help them to build their own brand, but this is all part of our own army. So that's what we are extremely proud of. And hopefully, and I think I'm pretty convinced that this will continue like this. Overall, important to know, big difference. We have as I said before, we are a multi-team club being present internationally in all different kind of relevant leagues and games. And we are convinced that we are further growing and entering into other industry or into other games as well in the future. What makes us successful and how do we measure that? And what I said before in terms of our culture and our philosophy, we always want to be relevant. And what you can see as well in terms of awards that we won over the last couple of years, we are, whenever we are in a league or in a game, we always one of the most watched, most streamed, most relevant team overall. We spend a lot of money to continue to be in that position by producing content exactly the way how the community is expecting that and is demanding that as well. The standard way, anybody who is familiar with esport and clubs and how they are managed is pretty simple, pretty decent in terms of we have a marketing plan together with our partners. We decide in what game, what event, what content we want to produce and how to distribute that on different channels and platforms. Then we are the content producer. We promote the content with players and influencers. And ultimately, we have a data tool as well that we measure the success of whatever we do together with partners. Having that said, let's enter into the situation around COVID-19 or Corona in 2020. Being that long in the industry and on this planet, this was, I think, my opinion, by far the biggest impact ever on this planet, on industry, and of course, all societies in this world. And there were different kind of impacts for different industries. And luckily and thankfully, we are able to say that we had an impact as well. The industry had an impact as well. You see that for the first time, revenue in esport stay flat or even slightly decreased to a certain extent. What you see in 2021, that is a forecast 21 from Newzo and how they calculate it is, you still see that the increase is moderate. So for 21, there is still a lot of influence due to Corona. But then in 2022, the hope is there that everything gets back to normal and that we can fully use the power that the industry has to grow significantly more than this is the case in 2021. G2 needs to be extremely, extremely happy and thankful for the fact, if I show you the numbers. Is there any question or I hear sometimes some background noise? Hope that's not the case. So what you see here is compared to the industry growth, G2 has a incredible growth in 2020. Even though that we had some impacts of Corona as well, but we could grow our business so much that this is really, really incredible. However, we had to change almost everything as well, the way we work. We were to a certain extent privileged because our business is fully digital. And the issues other more old-fashioned industry have is the fact that they never consequently digitalized their business. So we were already in an advanced status in terms of being prepared for a digital environment. We had some kind of footprint in the offline environment as well. And we were able to move that from offline to online in order to be fully on track in terms of our marketing execution. What does it in concrete means? What was the impact in 2020 that we have seen? So what we definitely saw is the fact that the partners that we work with were much slower in terms of commitments for budgets to be spent in 2020. That was all about the insecurity around COVID-19 because they couldn't see what the impact would be. And therefore, Of course, they were more cautious before they made decision for big money investment into anything. Thankfully, we only had a delay. We didn't saw any kind of reduction in budget they spend or anything in terms of reduction of initiatives. But there was a high level of cautious behavior and a kind of thinking twice and even 3 times before anything was committed. But in real numbers, we were extremely successful anyhow, because what you can see is we found 6 new partners. One of them or 2 of them is BMW and Adidas, so not small partners, big ones, the real big ones in the company, in the industry. We could increase our starting revenue in 2025 by 75%, and ultimately an increase on our end, what you could see, what was flat in the industry, we could increase our total business by 45%. So very happy that this is the case for us. It's not given due to coincidence. We started last year, February, when we heard first indication that there might be a pandemic in the world. We started immediately to think what the implication could be and started to adapt our toolkit accordingly. So how does it look like in particular? It looked in a way that there was no way anymore to produce content the way we did before. We didn't want to take the risk to have potential risk of our players being infected by Corona. And therefore, we simply had to decide that we used photos for video creation, and the community took that extremely positive, that we had this kind of responsible behavior, not having this kind of potential risk for any of our employees or players to be confronted with Corona. And therefore, we just changed the way how we produced. We needed to work with kind of non-person present kind of production. And what you can see here, that was extremely well perceived by the community, and that was extremely well perceived by our partners, in this case, BMW as well. We got good results, we got even great results, and therefore that was one activity that we did in terms of production. A second example, what we changed, usually for Worlds, there's a kind of big kind of on-stage live content production and stuff like this. This was impossible, even though that they created an isolation bubble environment for the tournament. It was a physical tournament that happened. It was not an online only tournament. It requires that our players and all the production team needed to be in quarantine for 14 days before the event even started. And what we simply did, because even the teams were not allowed to share rooms or to share any kind of thing during these 14 days of quarantine, we gave them video cameras themselves, and we created content in the isolation bubble for the 14 days in advance and shared that and joined that with our partners and distributed that the same way as we did before. That was extremely well perceived, because the showing responsibility for your organization and showing that you adapt according to the new situation around Corona, that was something that was super well perceived, both audio in the community as well with our partners. What do I think what it will be in the future now that we see that it's getting better? It's not like that everything is done and it's solved and it's fixed right now. I think we are still in a situation that we need to be careful in terms of whatever we do in terms of getting back to normal. But what I personally think it will never go back to normal. And it should not go back to normal, because we all have learned that traveling for any event is not 100% needed. We have seen that you can reach your community and audience without being present on events or on any activity. We have seen there are alternatives in order to avoid any potential risk. From a business perspective, I see we were so privileged that we didn't saw any direct impact. And now here I'm talking about G2 only. There are definitely other organizations in esport which have seen a direct impact. I don't see, we didn't have that. I don't see that in 2021, but there might be an indirect impact for us as well, because the partners that we work with might have an impact and might need to react in terms of their budget and commitments. I think we will maintain to use the established new formats like online events and online production, and that is a good thing to have, because it saves a lot of money. That money can be spent in a better way instead of traveling. And that's why I think we should do our best to keep that new formats alive. And we created new formats. We have been able with that concept to have all our deliverables fulfilled, and we could significantly grow our audience. And I really believe, and I think that's not something that you need to be great in making projection for the future. I think we shouldn't go back to the way how it was before, because we have learned that the way how we manage the business right now, with the adaptation we made, it works even better than it worked ever before. So hopefully that could give you a kind of understanding what we are, how we work, what we do, and what we see for the future.
Thank you so much, Peter, for that wonderful address to our audiences. I'm sure all our viewers have taken away some great highlights and takeaways from your session. Thank you so much for your time once again.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, requesting all of you to join our online conversation using the hashtag E4mGameOn. Moving forward, we are going towards the fireside chat, where we will talk about Indian gaming companies going global. Chairing this session is Dr. Anurag Batra, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief, Exchange for Media Group. And we have with us Mr. Sai Srinivas, Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of MPL. A very warm welcome to you, gentlemen.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Lovely to have you here. Just give us a moment. I think Dr. Batra is also here.
Sure.
So, just quickly gonna check and come back to you, Sai. Thank you so much for joining in. Just give us a second. Yeah.
Hi, Sai. How are you doing?
Hello, Dr. Anurag. How are you? Should I call you Dr. Anurag, or is Anurag just
Anurag
fine?
is okay. AB is okay. Anurag is okay. Whatever.
Okay, I'll go with AB. How are you, AB? I'm doing very well.
And where are you based?
I'm currently based in Bangalore.
Bangalore. Okay, good. We were all in Bangalore 2 weeks back for our Exchange for Media Influencer of the Year award. We gave it to Vivek, to Naveen Tiwari of InMobi. So we did a physical event in Bangalore on the 5th.
I see. Wonderful. That's good to know. Hopefully we'll get through this thing, and then I think we can all get back to a more physical world.
Yeah, it was looking good, but last couple of days again, as you know, in Noida today, they put a partial lockdown.
Oh, I see.
Bombay, they're looking to put a lockdown. In Delhi, the numbers were really low and things seemed normal. The traffic was back to its normal. So anyway, good. You have done very well. So congratulations. You've done well.
Thank you, AB. I think, fingers crossed. We've been very, very fortunate to have been at the right place at the right time. I think a lot of credit goes to a lot of the infrastructure that companies before us have built, and a lot of things. I think very, very lucky to be at the right place at the right time, to be honest.
And what do you think of the Nazara IPO?
I think it's an incredible milestone, to be honest. Right? I think it is incredible because the fact that an Indian homegrown gaming company is gone public in our market, I think it's nothing short of remarkable. I think this is hopefully going to be the first of many. So yeah, it's amazing. It's also inspiring, and it's also very, very encouraging for not only me but practically the entire ecosystem.
By the way, you and Naveen Tiwari share the same alma mater. You're both IIT Kanpur, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Of course, we're separated by a significant number of years, but yes, he's my alumnus. I mean, even I'm an alumnus now, but he's my senior, right? I think we're separated by about 8 to 10 years, if I'm not wrong. But yes,
You're 2010. He's I think 2000 or 2001. He's 2000.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Good. So we are ready to start, Amisha, whenever you want.
Yes, please.
Yes, Dr. Batra, we'd like you to take the fireside chat forward.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kathy. Let me welcome somebody who's really in the news for the right reasons. Let me welcome Sai Srinivas, who's the CEO and co-founder of MPL. I don't have to explain to our viewers what MPL is. Sai, first of all, let me start by asking you, how have been your last 12 months personally and professionally? I know the gaming numbers have gone up, the gaming business has done well, but tell us overall, how's been the last 12 months?
I think, firstly, thank you so much, AB, and thank you so much, E4M team, for inviting me. The last 12 months has been quite a roller coaster, to be honest, right? Business, I mean, already the gaming industry has leapt forward by about a couple of years in probably 6 months. On a personal front, it's not easy to practically stay indoors for so long, but hopefully with the vaccine rolling out and more people getting it, we can all get back to offices in full strength and pick it up where we left off in 2019, I guess.
Okay, let me start by asking you. Today, gaming is becoming mainstream. It was sometimes on the fringes. It was something you did for leisure. Today, it's no longer leisure. It's becoming a mainstream activity. You pursue it like a career. You pursue it as like a serious hobby. The use of gamification in education, the use of gamification in almost every sphere of life is growing. So tell me, where do you think gaming is headed? And give us a sense of where it will be in 3 to 5 years through some numbers that you can share with our audience.
Of course. So, firstly, maybe the reason why gaming is becoming mainstream is that, in all honesty, gaming has always been in some way mainstream. It's just that now thanks to the access of internet and thanks to mobile phone penetration, it's just becoming more and more accessible. Also, the beauty of gaming is that games are probably the only format of content that do not have a language. For example, a game of pool can be played by an American, can be played by a German, can be played by an Indian, and they might not know each other's language, but they can still play the game. But you honestly can't say the same about any other format of content, be it a movie, be it a video, be it audio, be it text. I think it's universal language, and that's the reason why it's also so easy for anyone to pick it up. Now, that's honestly the reason why I think it will go mainstream even faster than some of the other content formats out there. Now, to answer the other question that you asked, where is this headed, right? Or where are we going, right? I think what's going to happen in a couple of years from now is that there is going to be a platform. Now, whether that's MPL, whether that's someone else, that only time can tell. But there is going to be a platform where massive global tournaments will happen, right? For example, take a simple game like chess, right? In 2 years from now, or in fact, year and a half from now, it's not far-fetched to think that a player who's playing out of New York in US can compete with a player playing out of Sao Paulo, compete with a player playing out of Delhi in India, in massive online tournaments where there are 1 million odd people playing. So imagine this tournament, right? There are 1 million people playing. First round, 500,000 get eliminated. Second round, 250,000 get eliminated. And then eventually you have quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, right? Not only is the scale of the tournament quite immense, but imagine the situation maybe if you and I are playing the quarterfinals of a tournament like that. I'm reasonably certain that a significant bunch of folks from across the world would also want to see the live broadcast how the game between you and me is going on, because we've eliminated a lot of people to get to the final eight. I think that is the future of digital sport, or in other words, that is the future of esports, right? It is going to be heavily mobile driven because most people can access computing only through mobile. Uh, of course, PC and console led the esport revolution. It started with them, like many other things in the world. But as and when it gets into developing markets and gets into more people's hands, it's going to be mobile that's going to lead that revolution. And that's the only way you're going to get competitive esports into the hands of 3 to 4 billion people across the world, if not the whole of 7 billion. So that's how I look at the future. And that 1 million is just a placeholder, right? These tournaments can be as high as 5 million, 10 million, 12 million. It's just the limitation is just your imagination, right? Practically every person who understands chess can play a tournament of chess online using their mobile phone. But imagine if a similar tournament were to be held offline. It's just impossible to even accommodate more than 10,000 people offline. And that's the beauty of online digital sport. And hopefully we realize that future sooner rather than later.
Absolutely, Sai. The esports in India are poised to grow, and you clearly said that the beauty is that the access to the games is through mobile, and that is bringing more and more players and viewers both into the ambit. Now, let me talk of in homegrown games. How do you think the homegrown games are doing in India, and what do you see the potential for the homegrown games becoming really big?
Sure. I think 2 points, right? Firstly, there are a lot of incredible homegrown game developers who are doing pretty well in India, right? There are also homegrown game developers who are making games for global audiences and who focus on making games for Western markets out of India. It's a different ball game that we still not have or still not had a AAA level game, or should I say a world-class AAA level game come out of India. And I think that's just a matter of time, right? It will happen. And the reason why it takes time for that to happen is that a game, at the end of the day, the closest analogy that I can think of is a movie, right? To make a high budget movie, the market has to grow. The domestic market has to grow, right? To make a high budget movie, the person who's putting in that money needs to be confident that they will be able to eventually break even on the investment, right? So as the market grows, the appetite of local game developers will also grow, and you will see incredibly large AAA level titles come out of India. But one thing's for certain, most of Indian game developers or Indian games will be mobile focused. I'm not saying they won't be console or PC focused, but almost 9 out of 10 developers are going to build games for the mobile phone.
Okay. Now, again, Exchange4Media is the business community for marketing, advertising, media. Now, as I said, gamification is becoming part of every marketer's plan, because if a lot of millennials and a lot of consumers are using games as a way to express themselves, or spending so much time on gaming platforms, either participating or viewing, then clearly the marketeers would want to leverage that. Tell us, what are the things that marketeers can do to leverage gaming?
Sure. I think the first thing that marketers can do to leverage gaming is to actively participate in sponsoring or participating in large-scale esport tournaments. So, for example, just take the example which we took, right? Like if you're running a tournament for 1 million people, and hopefully another million or two are going to watch that tournament, that is at least 2 to 3 million eyeballs glued to that tournament, right? And in a way that's really targeted communication, right? Because that audience which is playing the tournament as well as viewing the tournament, for those folks, there's no better way to reach out than by sponsoring that tournament. And the cost of sponsoring these tournaments is significantly lower because it doesn't involve a lot of physical infrastructure. If you were sponsoring a physical tournament, then it always involves a lot of infrastructure, and obviously that it costs a little higher. And it also becomes an easy way for marketers to actually target specific audiences. For example, different games have different types of audiences, right? Like depending on the kind of audience you want to go after, you can pick and choose and sponsor the tournament which is being held in that kind of a game, right? If it is you know, if you're looking at a more male-dominated audience, then you may want to go for a more male-dominated game, which has a more male-dominated user base. If you're going for a female-dominated game, there are games which are extremely female, skewed towards a female audience. So that's the advantage of how that's the advantage of sponsoring esports tournaments. And I think a lot of the marketeers should definitely start spending time, and in fact, more importantly, spending some amount of money understanding the space, because eventually the marketeers who do understand the space are going to get a significant head start over the other folks who will not spend time understanding it, but then would want to understand it once it becomes fully mainstream. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, Sai, again, let's talk of one of the things that we talk of is you talked of, gaming does not having a language barrier. It does not have a geographical barrier. Now, the growth of internet in India happened on the back of Indian language content growing.
Yeah.
Right. Now, do you think that gaming in Indian language is the next big frontier? Because clearly that may bring in a set of audiences that have never been introduced to gaming.
Of course, I think more than gaming in Indian language frontier, I think like our honorable Prime Minister said, games built on Indian stories, right? Like this, I mean, if you look at Japan, like there's so many games that they've launched built on their stories that have originated from their land. In India, in fact, we are a land, we've got so many stories, right? And every game, one way or the other, is telling a small story. It's a very simple story. In some cases, it's a very simple story. In some cases, it's a very in-depth story. I think more than language, I think games that are built on stories which are very familiar to Indian audiences will tend to do well, right? And I think more Indians come online, there will be studios that will focus on building some of these games.
Fantastic. Now, again, gaming and, if I may say, esports in India is also creating new set of jobs. While machine learning, artificial intelligence are taking away some of the jobs, but they're also creating a set of new jobs. Similarly, gaming is creating a set of new jobs. Give us a sense of the kind of jobs that are being created and what is the future for people who are looking at careers in gaming.
Sure. See, I think this is one such industry, AB, especially competitive esports. India and Indian platforms will be eventually net exporters, right? You will see a lot of Indian companies actually exporting their platforms to other parts of the world. What this does is that it directly builds a class of workforce which is focused on IP creation. India historically has been extremely good in services, but the advantage of building this ecosystem is that it focuses a lot on IP creation. And the advantage of IP is that IP is like digital property, right? It can be monetized again and again and again and again across the world. And that creates a lot of value back for the Indian ecosystem, right? And in terms of kind of jobs it's going to create a lot of jobs apart from the core aspects which everyone knows about, like engineering, product management, etc. It's going to add a lot of value to the creative ecosystem, right? Today, if there's a storyteller, most storytellers in India are either working in the film industry or related industries, right? Storytelling is one of the most critical aspects of game development, right? In fact, copywriting, critical aspect of game development. In fact, most of the creative folks who are working in say film industry or the OTT industry, a lot of them will find a lot of relevant jobs in the gaming industry as well. So that entire pie is going to expand quite significantly. Designers, creative writers, artists, animators, that entire space. And for all practical purposes, India has always been good at this, by the way. A lot of the work that happens on a lot of these top-class Hollywood movies, a lot of that work actually happens in India. There are a lot of artists in India who are actually contributing to that. So it's only going to increase the pie for all of those people. I mean, the sector itself, I think, will easily create about 50 to 60,000 jobs in the course of the next 2.5 years, easy. And most of these jobs are going to be built around IP development. And the fact and the advantage with IP development is that it's not like a service where once used, the value of it erodes, right? IP's value only keeps it only keeps getting better and better. So that's the advantage of building jobs in this sector.
Now, clearly, as the esports audiences, players, and the domain grows globally, what do you think is the role that Indian esports companies will play on a global level?
I think the number one thing that Indian esports companies the role that we should play on a global level is that we should fundamentally define what esports means for our country, right? What I mean by that is, I mean, I fully acknowledge and understand that, the Western world has run esports on PCs and consoles and so on and so forth. But I mean, let's be honest, in our country, the number of people who have consoles or PCs is a very few. And denying the opportunity for the rest of the 200-300 million people to participate in a competitive tournament just because they don't have a PC or a console, I think is ridiculous, right? I think the first thing that we should do is we as a country should enable the participation of the larger audience who even have a mobile phone. They should be able to participate in a competitive esport. And if you look at the global esport audience, right, by the next 2-3 years, AB, easily about 30 to 35% of that audience is going to come from India just because of the sheer size of our country and the sheer size of consumption in our country. Now, if 30 to 35% of consumption of any industry is coming from one geography, then I think the onus is on that geography to increase participation and at the same time build out clear regulations and provide and create regulations which make it inclusive for users and players to participate.
Fantastic. Now, clearly, Sai, when you see an Indian gaming company doing an IPO, it augurs well for the sector. That means the sector is something that has tremendous promise. So tell us when you look at your contemporaries, you look at other players, what are the kind of thoughts that come to your mind? And tell us, how does Nazara's IPO augur well for your sector? And do we see companies like yours aiming at listing at some stage?
Yeah. So firstly, I mean, let me tell you that we are all standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Like, it's folks like them who've put in the hard work and done a lot of incredible work because of which our lives are significantly easier, right? I mean, back in 2001, 2002, I mean, I could only imagine how hard it must have been for the entrepreneurs then to even talk about gaming and explain to investors what gaming is. It is so much more easier today thanks to the work that these folks have done, right? So first and foremost, the success that some of us enjoy and some of the next set of entrepreneurs are enjoying is a lot of that credit actually goes to some of these folks. In fact, some of the folks from Nazara and some of the other folks also who worked really, really hard to bring that recognition to that industry. Now, as far as our listing is concerned, I think maybe at the end of the day, every company eventually at some point wants to be listed, right? Like, that's the eventual dream that any entrepreneur would have. Now, we are a 2.5-year-old company, right? I think it's a little far-fetched for us to talk about listing at such a young age. I mean, I think we still have a long way to go. We still have a lot to learn from the likes of Nazara and from the likes of many other contemporaries, if I may add, who've listed. But hopefully someday we would also love to be on a similar pedestal and list them here.
Fantastic. Now, let's talk of the trends that are shaping these. If you had to make 2 or 3 predictions for the future of gaming, what would those be?
2 or 3 predictions for the future of gaming. I think gaming in India is going to make more money than Bollywood does, or all the film industry does. I think that I'm certain of. In any country where gaming has become mainstream, it eventually makes more money than all the other entertainment sectors combined. It's true about US, it's true about China, this is true about many other developed economies, and India is heading in that direction. The second prediction that doesn't mean that those industries won't grow. Those industries will also grow. It's just that gaming has this nature of of the market size of gaming usually grows much more faster than some of the other ones. I think the second prediction that I'll say is that esports is going to be a part of Asian Games. It's already a part of Asian Games. Esports is also eventually going to be a part of Olympics. I think India and Indians will probably be on, if not the first, at least in the first 3 or 4 countries who will win a lot of medals in the Olympics, as long as esports across the globe recognizes that access to the sport is the most important thing. That doesn't mean that you create non-inclusive parameters such as only a person with a PC or a console can participate in it. If we provide the access to our countrymen, and if 300 million people are competing in a tournament, AB, I am reasonably certain the person who's going to come out on top is more or less going to be in the top 2 or 3 in the world, right? So our number one job is to provide access, and our number one job is to ensure that these esports, which are getting recognized by these global sporting events, they also ensure that they are allowing people with the access to the right kind of devices to increase the reach for the sport.
Okay. That's very heartening, and I think for a long time we've done well in sports, but we fell short of winning medals, except say in shooting or in boxing or in athletes. I think the addition of esports to the Olympics and the Asian Games will really help in boosting the confidence of the Indian sporting and e-sporting community. And really, it augurs well that they're being included and Indians will do well. I want to ask you, what are the plans of MPL over the next 12 to 18 months, and what are your priorities?
See, I think our first priority is to most clearly and certainly host large-scale tournaments in India. For example, maybe last year in October, November, December, we hosted this tournament called College Premier League, wherein 150 colleges participated in a national level tournament across the country, and it was the first attempt. It was in fact a beta. This year we are aiming to host the same event with about 1,000 colleges participating. I think first and foremost, our goal is to host large-scale digital tournaments where people can participate from any part of the country in India, and capitalize on India and ensure that Indian developers earn a significant amount of money from our platform. Secondly, our second priority is to take our platform to as many countries in the world as possible. We are already there in Indonesia, and we're seeing really good traction there. Our goal is to hopefully take our platform to more Western economies, and eventually take consumer product out of this part of the world to say more developed regions. I think that's something very few people have done. It's a very, very hard task, and I hope fingers crossed, I hope we will be able to do a reasonable job of it.
Okay, and Sai, when you're building this incredible company and you're on this journey, who are people who are your role models and you look up to?
I think my role models my role models have always been sportsmen. To be honest, I think there are other entrepreneurs as well, of course, across India and across the world who are incredibly good role models. But for me, it's always been sportsmen who are my role models. Like for example, Virat is in fact my role model. I've always been a huge fan of his. And when we actually did sign him up, it was a bit of an unbelievable moment for me. And the reason why I say Virat is a role model for me is because the way the man changed himself and the way he kind of changed himself to become the sportsman he has become, and the way he shaped an entire country to believe that we can be world beaters, right? And we can also be the kind of athletes that back in the day, we used to see from Australia, we used to see from South Africa. We used to imagine, I don't know, back in the day, we used to say, why can't an Indian team field as well as, say, a South African team or an Australian team? And I think what Virat net did was that he made everybody believe that not only could you do that, but in fact, you could go a level further and be better than anybody else, I think, in every way possible, right? And for me, I think that is one I've never seen an athlete inspire someone and inspire a country as much as he has. Apart from that, of course, there are other sportsmen like Ronaldo and Nadal who are incredibly amazing as well. And yeah, in terms of business folks, I think Indian entrepreneur, a lot of Indian entrepreneurs, the founders of Flipkart, the founders of Infosys, they've all, like I said, we're all standing on shoulders of giants, right? They've all done a lot of good work, and it's because of their good work that we have such a vibrant ecosystem. So yeah, these are some of the folks I really look up to.
Thank you so much, Sai. We at Exchange for Media wish you luck in your endeavor to grow the esports domain in India and to build MPL to the next level. So I'm sure with somebody like you leading it, the goals and objectives you've set for yourself and for MPL will be achieved. All the best to you. Congratulations on growing MPL and esports in India. And I look forward to the next few months and years with anticipation, because I know that you'll be able to do a great job at being a poster boy for this industry. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Back to you, Kathy. Back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sai and Dr. Batra, for that very interesting conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, as you can already see, we have with us Mr. Girish Menon, partner and head media and entertainment KPMG, who will be talking about the online gaming landscape in India. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Menon.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Just give me a second until I share my screen, please. Is this visible?
Yes, Menon. Mr. Menon, yes.
Give me a second. Great. Thank you so much, Kathy, and hello, everybody, and welcome to this session on the Online Gaming Summit. I'm very excited to be here and talk to you guys about our perspective on the online gaming landscape in India. This is a space that is that is something that we are tracking very, very closely, and it's a space that we've starting to see explored over the last few years or so, right? And it's very interesting to see the continuous number of triggers that keep coming up, which seem to be driving sustained growth in the space, right? Post the 4G and the smartphone evolution, we saw a big bump up in the user space for online games in India. And during the COVID period, this was probably one of the very few sectors which actually saw an increase in user base and user engagement, and I'll talk about that in a bit. We are also seeing a fairly robust and continued interest from investors, both private and public, and this also hopefully will augur well for solving for some of the challenges around capital constraints for the sector. So what I want to do today is use this session to very quickly take all of you through some of the more basics and some key aspects around online gaming in India. And let me start with literally gaming 101, right? So what is really gaming? When we talk about gaming, what do we really actually mean? And and there are obviously many contexts around this, and where does what fit in? So what we've tried to do is pull together a wide landscape which sort of covers the various elements around gaming in India, right? So gaming at a very overall level, when you split it out into devices, so you've got console and PC at one end, and then you've got mobile online gaming as the other play in India, right? And within all of this, when you then break it down further into what are the business models or categories of games that exist, right? So you've got casual gaming, you've got real money games, and you've got esports, which sort of piggybacks on the overall ecosystem, right? Casual game in India is actually probably has got the largest subset of users with 380 400 million users currently, whereas RMG in terms of the user base is comparatively smaller. RMG itself has many components in it, and you've got fundamentally card games, you've got fantasy sports operators, and then you've got other skill-based games that sort of bring in, and that kind of a base for RMG ranges anywhere between 100 to 150 million users as it stands today. Esports, and we heard Sai a little bit before also, is a space which is showing tremendous traction over the last year to 2 years or so. The number of players in the country are, probably, 80,000 plus, getting very quickly to about 100,000 players in the country. Viewers are already 14 million plus, right? And I think that is, gives a little bit of a confidence in terms of the depth of the user base that we are seeing in India. The other approach to also looking at online gaming in India is also the monetization models. So if you look at casual games, fundamentally and interestingly and uniquely driven by advertising in India today, with paid models, comprising, purchase, pay per download, in-app purchases, which is a comparatively smaller share in India today. But globally, it's the predominant mode, and we are seeing a greater traction on paid models as we go along. On the real money gaming side, we've got commission revenue as the primary revenue model for most of the real money game companies, with minimal advertising contribution also. So, and if you really pull it all together, and I think, the other obviously key point and the reason why a lot of the emphasis for us is on online gaming, and within that on the casual gaming genre, is fundamentally the fact that the majority of the users, almost 90% of the users in India, play mobile games, and almost all of them play casual games, right? So I think that's how we sort of look at the overall landscape and context for the Indian gaming segment, right? When you now convert that into numbers, what does that mean? So if you look at it, so gaming as a business, as a segment, has seen dramatic growth over the last 5 years, from what was almost a 170, 180 million users in FY15. We are now close to 400 at the calendar year December 20, and we expect by another 12, 18 months or so, we should be close to 500 million users in the country. And I think that is a significant scale up that we are seeing on the gaming user base in India. On the other hand, when you convert that into numbers and into money, gaming is about 1.3 billion dollars in FY20, and we expect that to get to more than $2 billion in literally 2 years time frame, right? And again, Sai made the point that a lot, that gaming tends to overshadow other entertainment segments as it grows in size, right? And this is perfectly true for a lot of the mature markets, and even in India. If you look at some of the more emerging segments and you compare that to gaming, so I mean, OTT is a classic example. Gaming is already a larger segment than OTT, and and globally, gaming actually tends to overshadow more traditional segments like even television. When you look at the Indian context, and I think this is where we need to look at the maturity curve for India in terms of monetization. Currently, 60% of industry revenues are actually coming in from RMG, though casual is as a segment is what is expected to drive and grow revenues at a much faster pace as we go forward. When we then step back a second and look at, so we spoke about the landscape of the gaming segment. What is the value chain, right? What are the various companies about? What do they do? Where do they fit in? So really, you can start, with the developer, which is the game studio, who either build a brand or an IP on their own, they leverage existing IPs or brands. And then you've got the publisher, who then picks up the studio, the IP, and then, brands it, markets it, enables distribution at scale, and enables reach to the consumers, right? In a lot of developed markets, you will see the publishers and studios overlap with each other. When it comes to distribution and monetization, fundamental models tend to be, app store, or online gaming stores, or retail gaming stores, right? But uniquely, what's sort of seeing a lot of traction in India as compared to a lot of other developed markets is India is seeing the emergence of multi-gaming platforms, which then act as a mini universe of their own for consumers to engage and play games, and also direct downloads, and particularly pushed through by the RMG and fantasy sports players. And that's also a model which has actually become very well established within the Indian ecosystem. So now, and I briefly mentioned this at the beginning, right? COVID, was interestingly a trigger for gaming growth and increased interest in gaming over the last 12 months or so, right? I mean, we've seen, if you look at the last three quarters, right? Q1 to Q2 20, which is during the lockdown period, we saw almost a 50% growth in mobile game downloads, right? And interestingly, that's a number that actually sustained, right? So it's not that after lockdown, and this was a worry that people will pull back and there will be a reduction in gameplay. It's actually stabilized, and we are actually now seeing a lot of the gameplay, the user engagement metrics, as also the number of users and downloads either stabilize at similar levels as Q2, or maybe drop down a little, but still remain significantly higher to pre-COVID levels. So bringing all this together, right now, while all of this is very interesting hearing and very interesting reading, I think there are three or four angles that we do need to keep in mind when you look at the Indian gaming industry. I mean, realistically, it is still a relatively less mature industry, right? And it needs time before we can start seeing a significant growth curve continuing to come through, right? Particularly when it comes to monetization. While gaming has been around in India for ever, literally, but it's literally post 4G, post 2016, where we saw large masses of users converge on the gaming ecosystem. And I think that maturity is something that we need to wait for. And that is also reflected partly in the ARPU levels, right? So India's casual gaming ARPU is $0.8 as compared to $65 in the US. $65 average globally. And that is a gap that we do need to bridge. Though I think one very important thing to keep in mind is fundamentally, globally, most markets evolved from console gaming and PC gaming, which created a culture of payment and a culture of high ARPUs, whereas India effectively leapfrogged that entire device generation, which is effectively meant that while you got a huge number of mobile users, getting them to be monetized is going to take a little bit longer. The other two or three angles around, that need to be, solved for as we move forward is that, from an Indian studio perspective, we need to see more studios building at scale, building game titles which are comparable to the best in the world. And while we are, on track, there is still a while to go around that. When it comes to regulatory, also there is, a need for regulatory clarification and clarity in terms of the way forward for the wider gaming sector. And same with distribution and access, particularly given that there are restrictions around, particularly for RMG and OFS with respect to the Play Store listing. So taking that forward, just to link it back to the point I made earlier around the maturity curve for India. India is still, if you really look at it, on the maturity index and the monetization index in the lower, left-hand quadrant, whereas there is still, and therefore there is still a while to go, before we can truly be comparable with the global markets. So while India is the second largest market in the world in terms of number of users, monetization still there is a while to go. And but like I said earlier, most of these other markets we are comparing ourselves to are far more mature markets when it comes to gaming behavior. And I think India will see us get there, and once we get some more sustained traction in terms of user engagement levels and user base, right? And we're already starting to see that kind of attraction happen, right? So if you look at television, for example, average TV time spent was 4 hours daily. In that comparison, when you look at video streaming, that's 3 hours 42, but gaming is already 3 hours 7, right? And therefore we are already starting to see gaming as a entertainment medium catch up with more established traditional mediums with respect to vying for the time of the consumer, right? And as that share becomes larger and as that share becomes more sustained, you will also see the follow-on effect on monetization. Uh, and therefore, and from there, what I now want to just, quickly touch upon are some of the key elements and trends that we've sort of seen, and the evolving areas that we are seeing around gaming in India, right? And, Sai was there in the previous conversation and he spoke about esports, and, beyond the point, not so much that I can add there, but I think two or three key elements that we need to keep in mind is, yes, as the maturity of the gamers grows, as we see international recognition of esports, particularly with the Olympic Games and the Asian Games, we will see greater amount of traction and greater depth in the ecosystem, on the gamer side, right? But along with that ecosystem, it is also important that the brand ecosystem, the broadcast ecosystem, the viewer ecosystem also develops rapidly, and I think that's something that we are starting to see happen, right, as we go forward. But there are two or three key elements that we do need to solve for as we move forward, right? I think one of the points was mentioned earlier also is the device ecosystem. I think esports is still largely driven through console and PCs, and move and that and getting a larger share of mobile gamers to play esports and to enable them to play tournaments is actually going to be very, very critical. The other angle that we also need to sort of keep in mind is that if you really step back and look at the titles and the publisher ecosystem for esports in India, it is still very, very shallow, in the sense that it is largely driven by a few titles, and there aren't any Indian titles that are sort of driving this ecosystem as of now, right? So I think the getting more depth in the publisher ecosystem is also extremely critical for the wider health of the esports market in India. And and taking on from that, right, and you can sort of even partly marry the two, right? One of the triggers that we believe that could actually enable the mobile gamers to essentially leapfrog into console titles in a large way is actually the cloud gaming as a phenomenon, right? This is something that has been effectively launched globally over in a few markets over the last 2 to 3 years or so. There is still a while to grow. It is still a very nascent product. I think the product itself is undergoing iterations. People are trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and what needs to be sorted out, right? The supply is something that is also needs to be sort of built on from a cloud gaming service perspective. Pricing, monetization, all of those are something that is still being figured out. But if you step back a second and look at what cloud gaming can mean for India, right? It essentially means that the entire console universe, in theory, becomes available to a mobile gamer, and we've got 400 million of them, right? So as you see more of these gamers being able to engage in more complex games, you will see a greater traction and maturity in the gaming universe in India, right? That being said, obviously there are angle aspects and challenges that needs to be sort of factored in, and the key element among them will be the infrastructure requirements, right? Particularly with respect to high-speed internet and the data requirements that exist today in terms of the kind of supply that is available on cloud gaming. But these are, in our view, challenges which we believe will get resolved over time. And I think and cloud gaming is something that will have a significant impact on how gaming in India evolves as we move forward. The other key angle that, a couple of other trends that we also wanted to, sort of, bring out. One of the reasons that, multiplayer games have done, and many titles did well in India, as also we saw a significant ramp up during the COVID period, was essentially the ability to engage socially through games, right? And social gaming is something that is seeing significant traction, games, through game streaming platforms, game community platforms, as also in-game social features, through multiplayer gaming, voice chat, video chat, multilingual, text chatting. all of that is essentially bringing a greater connectivity between the gamers, and it effectively means that you are essentially playing with friends, with family, and that sort of is giving greater encouragement for gamers to spend time with their interests, right? So I think this is a space that we will see far more interesting developments happening around. How do you engage more with gamers? How do you get gamers to engage more? And how do you really sort of build the ecosystem around social gaming as we move forward? So that, in a nutshell, really was what we were trying to sort of articulate in terms of how we see the gaming ecosystem develop as it moves forward. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I think we are going to see significant traction in gaming, both in terms of the user base as well as monetization. Monetization might lag user growth by a couple of years, but like I had mentioned, gaming is still a relatively nascent market in India. And as that market evolves and becomes more mature, you will see significant opportunities for monetization also start coming in as we go forward. That really, was briefly what I wanted to convey to you guys today. Hopefully, you found this interesting. And with that, I would like to hand it over back to Khyati. Khyati, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Menon, for giving us that very detailed landscape of what gaming in India in this industry looks like. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure all our viewers, all those enthusiastic gamers as well as gaming startups have taken some key takeaways from your session. Thank you very much once again.
Happy to help. Thank you.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope all of you are ready and geared up for our next session. Let me once again remind all of you there is an online buzz going on about this online gaming summit, E4M Game On. Use the hashtag E4M Game On and join our online conversation. Moving forward, we're going to talk about reaching the connected consumer, getting your game face on. We'd like to welcome our speaker for the session. He is the Director of Marketing at Asia Pacific at InMobi. I'd like to welcome Mr. Rajesh Pantina. A very warm welcome to you.
Hello. Hi, Kathy. Thanks a lot for that.
Good afternoon, sir. Over to you now.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to try sharing my screen. Let me know when you can see it. Kathy, hope you guys can see the screen.
Hey, buddy. You see.
Okay, thank you. Cool. So I think we've heard a lot from Sai, and we've also seen the overall online gaming space being described in detail by Girish. Now, what we'd like to do is basically our own insights on specifics of mobile gaming, where what we're basically looking at is a report titled "Everyone's Gaming Among Us," which is probably true, and a lot of you guys must be gaming right now while listening to this. Now, this report specifically, if you look at it, what we've tried to do is basically look at three parts. One is basically a bit of consumer research. What we're basically looking at is a report titled "Everyone's Gaming Among Us," which is probably true.
Can I request everybody else to please stay on mute? We're getting some feedback. Yes. Sorry, Rajesh. Please go on.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, quickly about the report, how we've gone about looking at the insights is we've looked at it in three parts. One is that there's a bit of consumer research that we have done using InMobi Pulse, which is our mobile consumer intelligence platform. The second bit is basically we've looked at a bunch of audience intelligence where we've looked at 1.7 trillion ad requests from January 2020 to January 2021. And using a lot of that, we've looked at actual engagement, actual kind of usage patterns, etc. And ultimately looked at some advertising insights on the InMobi Marketing Cloud. That's where advertisers meet consumers on the gaming environment and are able to actually meet their consumers, engage them in the right formats, right kind of ways that they want. Now, quickly jumping into just the methodology of the consumer research specifically, as I was mentioning, the Immobi Pulse platform is something that uses programmatic sampling to run surveys and garner responses. What we did this time around was between February 9 to 16, very recently, reached out to 1,000 plus Indian smartphone users or connected consumers across tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 cities, about 30 of them. And what we did was made sure that we weighed and targeted them to be representative of India's smartphone population. Now, what I'll cover in the next 7 to 8 minutes is basically, first up, just set the stage and help you understand what's the current demographic of the Indian mobile gamer like. And as we basically move and understand that demographic and then move into how the persona of the mobile gamer today is shaping up, what are their motivations like, why are they really gaming, we'll then move into the emerging trends that are actually coming up and then lasting behavior that for a long time, new normal behavior that we've been talking about has come out as. And ultimately, for a lot of guys, monetization is something that you've been hearing. And therein, while publishers have a huge opportunity, advertisers have an equal opportunity. But there have been a lot of myths, and those myths are something that I'd like to break at the end of this. Now, immediately setting the stage to help you understand how gamers are today, what the demographic is like. As the title suggests, it's not just a young urban man's game. It's been a long held myth amongst us that it's only the young and it's only the male who basically game a lot. But what we clearly see is with mobile, close to 50 or 43% of basically gamers, mobile gamers, are women. And what we also see is it is representative of all age groups with more than 30% of 45 plus age group, female gamers being seen on the mobile arena. Now, what we're also seeing is that gamers are quite well distributed across India. South leads with a 29%, North accounts for about 27%, while Western India and Central and Eastern India account for 22% each. Now that we've understood how the demographic has shaped up, how it's kind of evolved in the past, right, past 12 months, what we'd like to look at is how do we define or how do we understand the persona of this mobile gamer better, right? And what we really have seen that India is emerging as the land of the committed gamer. Now, here's how we basically been able to arrive at it is we asked a very simple question to our audience was to say, how often does one play games on their mobile phone? And what we found was a whopping 80% basically said that they played once to several times a day. And these are basically the committed gamers in India. And these committed gamers actually reign supreme across gender. While we see that there is a certain skew, very tiny skew towards male, but you see the 3 in 4 gamers, both female and male, are basically committed gamers. The other set of gamers that we are defining are regular and occasional gamers, where we see that regular gamers play at least once a week and occasional gamers play once a month or less. Now, I think the most critical part and one of the pieces that was already kind of brought up by Girish and is corroborated through this survey is that we really wanted to understand what's a motivation for people and why did people take up gaming, right? Now, what we really found out that mobile gaming is equal to relaxation. When we'd ask people what's their primary motivation, while you see a bunch of people wanting to compete and win, people wanting to fight boredom, people wanting to connect with friends and family, entertainment or relaxation basically reigned supreme. Now, what this means is that people are treating gaming as a part of their entertainment bucket, which is comprising also of OTT video, OTT music, a bunch of social probably engagements, etc. But then gaming is starting to own that entire entertainment and relaxation genre, and is probably the new face of entertainment now. Now, what's also unique, and as we basically need to keep that basic motivation in mind, is that people are looking at it as entertainment or relaxation. They are also snacking on mobile gaming. You will see that a whopping 70% are basically playing either for 10 to 30 minutes for each session. So the question that was posed to people here was, how long would each session of theirs be? And that turns out to be around 10 to 30 minutes. And that is true not just for basically, the overall gamers, but also committed, regular, and occasional gamers. So it's something that is a snacking behavior is coming true for anybody and everybody who is a mobile gamer today. Now, what that also basically shows is that people are looking for it as entertainment. People are basically looking for it as something that is helping their snacking behavior, and so therefore they're actually going to go play them all and try them all, from casual, card, multiplayer, online battle arena, action to esports. People are actually trying out any and every game that they can lay their hands on to basically entertain or relax themselves. Now, what we also saw was over 40% of these gamers overall, not just committed gamers, but overall, actually had more than 3 games at any point in time on their smartphones, right? While space might be an issue in the current Android heavy market, what we are eventually seeing, and there was a hint of about the cloud gaming, etc., but we will start seeing this entire thing drift and more games being present on everybody's smartphone. Now, having said that, what we wanted to also touch upon was that while there's a lot of stated data, people are responding to surveys, how did it actually pan out when it comes to actual engagement that we were seeing in those 1.7 trillion ad requests, right? Now, as you understand, this is a lot about games which use monetization, right, as their mechanism, or ad monetization as their mechanism. Now, one of the first emerging trends that we basically saw was an increase in time spent and increase in variety of games that people were using. Now, that is also something that is reflected in a response that we saw to our survey, where we saw that 45% Indians actually started playing mobile games due to the pandemic. So you see that there's been a huge insurgence of actually non-gamers just because of mobile making it available to them. And therefore democratization has actually brought in a whole new bunch of gamers who do not really know consoles, who do not really look at the desktop, but are basically looking at mobile gaming as the primary way of gaming. And therein, what we are also seeing is existing gamers are basically increasing their time spent and are increasing the variety of games that they are playing. Now, as you see, gaming has been winning hearts because what we saw on the platform as well was a 1.5x growth in terms of the users, unique users as well, from February 2020 to December 2020. And that is very much in line with where we are seeing that 45% of people have said that they actually started gaming just due to the pandemic. Now, please note here, this is unique user count. Now, if we move to the app usage itself, what we see are 2 big things. The first thing being that gaming earlier definitely was a small snacking kind of piece, but it had 2 big peaks, which was 11:30 and then prime time around 8:39. But what has happened due to the pandemic is basically gaming has actually emerged as a constant engagement piece through the day, and the peaks have actually just shifted 3 to 4 times, and there are some peaks which are like 6 times or more, but then it's on an average 3 to 4 times higher than the engagement that was there previously. Now, to put the unique user and the app usage growth into perspective, this is how things panned out. You see the mark where January 20, which is before lockdown, how app usage and unique users were at. And then after the lockdown, over the course of a year, this is where we are seeing, app usage and unique users shift to. That basically actually means that mobile gamers in India are not just committed, they are the most engaged and highly growing kind of a user base. Now, another way of basically looking at that change is to just see the heat map that we put together based on the same data. You see how there are a bunch of huge hotspots that have just exploded, and there are a lot of newer areas that have come into existence with mobile gamers actually coming on board, onto the platform, in mobile audience intelligence platform. Now, I think one important piece that we need to definitely look at, given all these insights, is at the end of the day, if consumers are behaving in a certain manner, how can brands or advertisers best make the most of it? Now, the first, I think, myth that we want to break in all of this is to talk about how women have basically entered the arena and are owning gaming, right? And you see, as we've seen earlier as well, is that 77% of all women who play are basically committed gamers. And what they are also doing is actually playing more in terms of time spent, right? And across age groups, the time spent is way higher than the average time spent by anybody and everybody when it comes to gaming. The second bit is also a long, forlorn kind of myth, which thinks that gamers are basically not my target audience. A brand always thinks that gamers definitely do not fit into my kind of target audience. Well, the myth cannot be far from the truth, because gamers are equally likely to use music, social networking, sports, entertainment, lifestyle, and news apps. And they're equally likely to be retail store visitors, shopping center and mall visitors, restaurant visitors, anything and everything. And therefore, what we really see is that in that 300 million strong audience on mobile gaming, you actually have, each of your target audience, each of your brand's target audience out there. Now, what's also unique, and this is something that again Girish had mentioned, was the idea of how gamers basically engage with ads in gameplay. Now, we had clearly asked people as to how would they prefer to progress in games. They clearly said that 3 in 4 gamers would actually watch an ad than pay money. Now, therefore, in-app purchases are definitely not going to be that prominent in the next couple of years for sure. But what we are seeing and what it means is that ads are something that gamers are basically okay with. And they also have a 60% recall whenever they see an ad. Maybe it's because the brand or product is a topic of interest. The ads help them benefit in the game, or the ad is engaging and interactive. But net, what you see is a highly committed gaming audience, which is engaged, which is watchful, and which has a high recall. That basically means that India as a land of committed gamers is basically your target audience on mobile. Now, also, when it comes to a bit of outcomes for advertisers themselves, what we have seen on the InMobi platform is that we have a 31% higher video completion rate than Moat benchmark, which is an industry benchmark for in-app video ads. And we've also seen 2.6 is higher engagement in terms of clicks, in terms of end card engagement, in terms of rich media engagement, etc., that can be built on top of video. Now that is basically, huge goal and a huge distance that brands can actually cover by starting to invest and starting to make more of what the mobile gaming audience is providing to them in today's time and age. That's basically it. I think you guys will have access to the detailed report and detailed insights in the chat link. If you have any other inquiries, if you have any other thoughts, please feel free to reach out to mobilemarketing@inmobi.com. Over to you, Kat. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Rajesh, for giving us that brief insight. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers have taken key highlights from your talk. Thank you so much for your time and sharing the insights here.
Thank you, Kathy. Bye.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all ready and set for our first panel discussion of the summit, where we're going to talk about the new media for marketeers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming our session chair for this session, Mr. Jayesh, President and General Manager, India in Mobi. A very warm welcome to you, Jayesh. And I'd leave the screen over to you to introduce our panelists and also take the session forward. Sorry, Mr. Jayesh, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. Yes. I hope I'm audible now.
Yes.
Thank you, Khyati. Thanks for the warm welcome. Welcome to the discussion on gaming, the new media for marketeers. My name is Jayesh Vulatal. I lead the India business for InMobi. I have had the opportunity and probably I've been associated with gaming since the days of Engage when I was with Nokia. Gaming has probably evolved quite a lot from that time. And it's it's actually become much more exciting a space right now. Uh, it certainly has moved in terms of the size, because earlier it was used to be a niche area, niche segment, but now it's gone across. You've seen the two reports from Mr. Menon and Rajesh, and the kind of audiences that we have is huge. So I won't take much time. Let's just go into this panel discussion. We have a wonderful set of panelists out here who have great experience across the board on gaming in multiple formats. And let me welcome the panelists. Ritu. Ritu is the head of marketing. She's the director for marketing for Dell Technologies. And with Dell Alienware and Inspiron brands, which are custom designed for serious gamers, I'm sure she has a lot to add to this particular discussion. Would leave it to Ritu to actually briefly talk about what she does.
Hey Jayesh, hi. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Okay, wonderful. So great to be here. Like I said, much looking forward to this interesting discussion today. Gaming is a very important part of our overall portfolio, of our PC notebook portfolio, not just across the world, but for India as well. And with Alienware and G series, it's a kind of segment that we go after. So looking forward to the discussion today. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks, Ritu. We also have Mr. Nilesh Gohil, Chief Business Officer, Merkle Sokrati, with more than 2 decades of experience in analytics, digital, and mobile. Over to you, Nilesh, for sharing some of your or some two sentences about your work.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I am part of Makal Sokrati, which is a team of about 1,000 customer experience specialists, and I lead a team of about 500 experts in digital transformation and customer activation, predominantly working in India market, right? And have had a chance to contribute to a number of unicorns and growth-minded companies in India. And I had a good fortune to work with a few of the gaming players as well, likes of Opro and Bazi and Games 24 and so on. So it'll be an exciting and interesting learning for me and others, I guess.
Wonderful to have you on the panel, Nilesh. So I think we have another interesting panelist from the world of gaming, Rashmi Ranjan Mishra, who heads Nazara's free to play gaming division. Rashmi, you might want to add a few words on what you exactly do.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me here. Thanks, guys. So, myself, Rashmi Ranjan Mishra, I lead the free-to-play business division of Nazara Games, and it's been a long time. We have been, in the gaming space, trying a lot of things, doing a lot of exciting stuff that I will definitely share with you guys my insights, my thoughts on this ecosystem. I personally have been heading the business revenue for Nazara Games. So it's been a very exciting journey for me, where we have been evangelizing brands and uh, day in day out for the how brands and agencies can leverage gaming as a space and helping them achieving their marketing goal.
Great, Rashmi. Thanks for being here. Adding more marketing muscle to this panel is Mr. Vineet Sharma, VP Marketing and New Business Development South Asia for ABN Bev. Vineet, love to hear from you more about your work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here, Jayesh. And my name is Vineet, and I lead marketing and new business development for AB InBev here in India. Gaming for us is a relatively newer space, but we have taken some interesting, steps with our brands, and some of the campaigns that we have done have had gaming at the heart of it, and we have learned a lot. And the results have been very, very impressive, if I may say. And today I'm very excited to share some of those experiences with each one of you and learn as well, because there's a lot of things that each one of you are doing, and and there's something that we can be inspired as well here in AB InBev.
Great, Vineet. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, we have Ashwin Patnaban from GroupM. He has the mandate from GroupM to in investing in co-creating with media, data, tech, and other products to enhance the value for their clients. Welcome, Ashwin. Welcome to the panel.
Thanks, Jayesh. I'm actually quite excited because as we speak, we at GroupM are incubating esports business. and it's on the back of a very successful sports consulting business, which actually works across multiple clients. But esports is clearly an area that we're seeing our clients being very interested to know more about and to see how they can actually engage with this community, as well as brands which are involved in this space. So for us, an important, I would say, an inflection point, because we're seeing consumers flocking in big way, and which means brands are clearly interested. So a lot of questions for us to ask and answer right now.
Great, Ashwin. Thanks for being here once again. So welcome all. It's great to be part of this wonderful panel, and we have already set the context. We have had two reports coming out, one from Mr. Menon and from Rajesh, and it's quite enlightening to see the kind of changes that have happened in the last few years, and especially during the pandemic. We have seen some great changes in terms of the adoption of gaming within India as well as globally. Uh, People talking about the kind of adoption in terms of the number of people who have started gaming on mobile gaming, the kind of percentage of women involved in gaming, so on and so forth. So interesting statistics, and look forward to this discussion. So to start off with, I'll put this question across to everybody. We'll pass on the question. The first thing that I just would like to understand, when you think of gaming or think of mobile gaming, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Can I start with maybe Ritu? Would you want to talk about what's your take on that?
Specifically, when you say mobile gaming, I think what comes to my mind is scale.
Right.
Very clearly, scale. Where I think that's been a good big enabler, particularly, and we've seen that in the report that was being shared in the previous session, that a lot of scale happened, particularly during the pandemic, because a lot of people were actually looking for online entertainment. So and those options were there, and I think mobile enabled and allowed that to happen. So definitely scale. Otherwise, I when it comes to gaming, I think of plenty of opportunities, and I think of engagement.
Thanks, Ritu. Let's just move on to Ashwin. Maybe you can share some insights on what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of gaming.
Actually, lesser insight, more an experience, I would say, Jayesh. Because for me, being also one of those casual gamers, adding up the numbers that Ritu spoke about, right? Uh, for me, those reward ads that come are top of my mind, because they allow me to play more, they allow me to go and do more things in the game. But that's also a sign of the fact that engagement levels are very high. And from a branding perspective, surely this is something which, as marketers, we're all very interested to know how to leverage better.
Great. Thanks. Nilesh, would you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I think my sentiments are similar to what Ritu mentioned, right? It's a massive business opportunity, especially as we work on the other side of the table, right? Enabling advertisers to tap onto this. I believe it's something that is relatively untapped. And I mean, personally, like Ashwin said, I have been also an avid game player and fondly remember those stimulating experiences, especially in my younger age. And I think, yeah, the video games have come long way, right?
Don't say that you're not playing any games now.
I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I do, but much less than I used to. Uh, and as like the second half of the humanity comes on board in the internet, right? I think more and more social media, the videos and the gamings are taking the center stage of the new kind of phenomena of entertainment. And I think gaming has a much bigger role to play as it evolves.
Great. Thanks, Nilesh. Moving on, so let's hear from Rashmi, since he's coming from the world of gaming. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Sure. So, Jayesh, I've been hearing to our esteemed panelist. Earlier, I was listening to sessions from Sai, Rajesh, Girish, and all that. So, I've been hearing and listening to them, and we all know that what kind of scale, gender, female, male, kind of participation, engagement is happening in gaming ecosystem that we all hearing for quite some time now. But to my mind, so what I will say two things. So far as the gaming comes to a mind, that is high on entertainment, that is high on engagement. These are the two factors I would emphasize upon. And the third interesting thing, Jayesh, I would like to highlight here. So I was hearing to one of my friend's kid, 10 years old boy. He was telling me, I was surprised to hear. So he has started thinking how gaming can be a career option for them. So when I asked him, what do you want to become? He told me, uncle, I want to become a gamer. So that's a very surprising, and I got, surprised to hear that. So I can say, that's a career option for millennials. So that's very interesting, thing that's happening.
Absolutely, Rashmi. I have one 14-year-old at my home who also seems to be taking up a career of gaming. At least I'm trying to see what can happen out of it. I think, Vineet, we are left to hear from you in terms of what is the first thing that comes to your mind when we think gaming.
Yeah, some interesting perspectives already coming in the groups, Jayesh. But for me, I think gaming, two things come up. One is new ways to reach customers, and brands today are using gaming as a very very active marketing tool. I think it's coming up very very sharp, and they are just going beyond the simple ad placements to create actually their own games to build a lot of engagement. And obviously, the time on gaming has increased, and brands who are actually following where the consumers are going will actually spend a lot of time and energy in thinking what do we do in gaming and how do we becoming part of the experience. So that was first, and the second one is a huge economy of gaming industry, right? Today I think it's valued around 150 billion plus industry. But if I look at from a brand side, and then the cost of playing a video game is no longer actually limited to just purchase of a base game. There's so many revenue driving mechanisms, and that's where our brands come into play. I'm very very inspired by what Louis Vuitton actually did with the League of Legends, where they're actually creating collections in real life as well as online skins. So it's a good example for brands to follow, and obviously there are a lot of brands who are already in the brand wagon. So yeah, two things. One is new ways to reach customers, as well at the same time a huge amount of growing economy and the growing industry gaming is becoming in times to come.
Great. Thanks, Vineet. In fact, that was leading on to my next question, which you have partially answered, which is basically, as a brand advertiser, marketeer, what's your perception of gaming, and what is your perception of gaming as a medium is something which I wanted to ask. You have already come up with some of the answers. Let's also hear from Ritu, because she also comes from the background. How does she look at it as a brand marketeer, advertiser? How do you look at gaming as a medium, advertising medium?
No, absolutely, Jayesh. So I think, like I said, for us, gaming is the right context, it's the right platform, it's the right environment to reach out to the audience that one wants to engage with. If I look at a scenario which was probably pre-COVID and some time back, when the perception about gaming was that it's a very niche kind of an audience that you're reaching out to, only a hardcore gamer or maybe a certain profile of people that you're reaching out to, and once that's the only kind of, if you had that as part of your TG audience defined, then you would use gaming as a platform for you to engage. But that mechanics has changed completely, as we've seen that even in the report, because the demographics has widened significantly. It's no longer a young man's space, a niche urban young man's space. There are no limitations in terms of demographics. It's wide based. There are no limitations in terms of gender, in terms of age. So with the kind of games that are mobile, particularly on mobile gaming, which are now getting introduced, it suddenly the audience profile has opened up for you. And if as a brand we are wanting to reach out to that set of audience, which is anybody's audience for that matter, if you're reaching out to that set of audience, then that's a good opportunity to do that from an engagement standpoint. And also, very honestly, from our perspective, it's also about engaging with them and giving them the right platform, and giving them the right experience and the right nudge, because eventually they may want to upgrade from a 5-inch screen to a 15-inch screen, from a mobile to a PC, because as they go evolve in their entire gaming journey, they may want to get into more, a different kind of a gaming experience altogether. So from a brand perspective, yes, there are lots of opportunities available, and we have done that ourselves, both globally across the world as well as in India. Some good partnerships that we've had. I think what's important is if it's done in the right manner. Yes, as Vineet said, there are display ads which are possible, and that's one very obvious platform that exists. But what is amazing now is that the possibilities in terms of what all you can do as part of that gaming space, whether it's as part of content, whether you build it in as part of your whole space, whether it's part of the franchise that you spoke of, how can you as a brand engage, kind of get yourself into that space and engage in a very relevant manner in a contextual sense. That is what drives the quality of engagement that you want to drive with that audience. So I think that's something which is available, and it's an opportunity which is being tapped, but I'm sure there's a lot more that is left to be tapped.
Great. Thanks, Ritu. Okay. What I hear is two things. One is catch them small, make them big. Uh, that's one, and the second one is the kind of engagement that you can bring in through gaming, being part of the content or being more immersive in the content and being part of the gameplay. That's something which you're talking about. That's great. So, from the same perspective, audience, and in terms of the kind of width of reach that you're able to get. I would like to hear from maybe Nilesh. You could talk about how do you perceive gaming as an advertising medium? Because you would have worked across brands, you would have had the experience of using that particular medium. I would like to hear from you. It would be great for the audience to hear from you. What is that perspective as a medium?
Absolutely, Jay. So I think from like reaching out to new audience, like Ritu mentioned and Vineet mentioned it, I think that's the primary mechanism that brands have been using. The Googles and the Facebooks of the world remain the primary kind of mediums otherwise, right, in the marketing budget. So the brand who wants to scale very, very fast, right, the gaming and the programmatic way through which to reach out to these users is the primary mechanism for incremental audience and the kind of augmenting the cost of acquisition for that incremental audience. I would say the gaming is another interesting element, which is like rewarded ads, right, which creates highly positive brand association as well. So while it has other normal ones like banner and video and so on, but I think the rewarded ads is predominantly used by kind of performance oriented marketeers. And another area that we have been kind of doing innovative work is on dynamic ads. So making sure that each of the ads are dynamic and playable in nature as much as possible to ensure that the advertisement outcomes are achieved.
All right. So what I'm hearing from you is gamification of ads on one side, which creates more engagement. Second one is rewarded ads because their completion rates and engagement is also higher. Great.
Yes,
Great. Thanks, Nilesh. That's great. The next question I would specifically want to be addressed by Rashmi, because he comes from that world and he would have a lot of insights considering he actually heads that part. Rashmi, the question is, beyond normal, regular advertising, which is your normal banners and rewarded videos, what are the different things that you can do as an advertiser, or what can advertisers do apart from this regular things to get more traction, or what are the opportunities for advertisers on gaming beyond regular ads? Could you throw some light for the panel, for the entire group as well as the audience? Am I audible?
Yes, so sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
So absolutely, Jay. So this question I mean asked every meeting that we attend or every pitch we make to brand or agency, that what else you can do in gaming for us beyond just video display, etc., etc. So the question is always that how you can bring on that immersive seamless experience to the consumers through your gaming platform. So that is a basic question that every day we have to answer, and we have to justify that how gaming can add value over and above just reach, scale, or the ROI kind of, or the visibility kind of scenario. So so I'll be happy to share a lot of things that we've seen in the market, a lot of case studies, a lot of campaigns we've seen in the market, be it the recent Red Bull campaign, which is done on the biggest cricket franchisee WCC. That campaign where a lot of lakhs of users, lakhs of participants, they participated in the qualifier round, the pre final round, the final round, and this is being watched live stream on different 20 YouTube channels and being watched by 10 million fans. They're getting huge reward money at the end of the day in the finale, and in the game itself, you have a lot of scopes, a lot of touch points where you seamlessly integrate the brand, creatively integrate the brand, and you host content in their name. You change, you customize the game mechanics, game control in the name of the brand. You place the brand, I mean, inside the game more creative manner, more without hampering the you can say the user experience, and you do a visibility, engagement, and interactivity, and finally you deliver the viewability from the brand and the gratification, gratify the users to build kind of top of the mind engagement, interaction among the target audience. So the ultimately what I'm trying to say is that the brand has a very clear objective. They want to reach out to the maximum of their TZ through gaming vehicle. So that the agenda is very clear, the target is very clear. And 2 3 more campaigns examples I'll be happy to share, like the campaign of Dettol we have seen, where in the game Chota Bhim game targeted to kids and their family, where in the game you highlight the message, you deliver the message that, hey, did you wash your hand, sanitize your hand before you eat something. So that is something, that kind of engagement interaction you create inside the game, where you deliver the message, you educate the target audience that, hey, have you used the product before you do something. So so the point I'm trying to make is that beyond just scale, delivering video or display inventory at scale, or you deliver programmatic inventories by help brands to deliver campaigns programmatically, you have a lot of other things that which can impact a brand, which can help the brands to grow and create a visibility amongst their audience. There are lot of examples we all have seen. We've seen that Mountain Dew Arena campaign, which has been a successful franchisee for last. So Aswin can add to that. So a lot of we've seen the participation, the visibility last few years. It's been going on, that franchise has been going on successfully. So the point I'm trying to bring onto this table is that brand should not look gaming as just a simple logo integration or a video integration, rewarded video or whatever it may be. But on the top of that, they can create a lot of interaction, they can create engagement, and they can deliver the message in a most creative and a best possible manner through gaming.
Interesting, Rashmi. Thanks for those insights. I think what you are referring to is the fact that there is a lot of digital touch points that are happening now, which is a meeting point between the virtual and the real worlds. If I were to take the example of the recent, what happened with the Marshmallow concert, which happened within the game of Fortnite. So such events, such digital campfires create a lot of traction and create a lot of engagement. Those are things which brands can leverage apart from just normal advertising. I would like to hear about that, because I think you do a lot of work around esports. I'm referring to Ashwin. You do a lot of work around esports. And I would like to hear your thoughts, Ashwin, on those kind of specific events that can happen in game and can be, a touch point between virtual and the real worlds. What do you have to say about that?
No, absolutely. I think there are multiple spaces around which a brand can get associated, and one of those spaces is the social space within a game. So if you take the Fortnite example, Fortnite created this social space where your avatar could actually participate in this concert. In fact, I remember you spoke about the Marshmallow concert, but I think in April 20 they did a Travis Scott concert inside the game, and that had about 27 million people watching the concert, and they had close to about 83 million streams that were that the concert was watched by. So they've done multiple events like that. They've also, in fact, the movie Tenet, Christopher Nolan's Tenet, the premiere of the trailer actually happened inside Fortnite.
Yeah.
And in fact, Christopher Nolan has announced that he's going to release a movie inside Fortnite. So clearly, people are figuring out ways in which their audiences that are, in the social space of a game, how can we leverage them? How can we create content which engages with them? And how can we create events which engage with them? And those are actually extremely exciting opportunities beyond what we've seen as obviously advertising. These are engagement opportunities. These are huge brand building opportunities, and does require a significant amount of programming. But I guess the sheer scale and branding that is feasible and possible, it's actually mouthwatering.
Great, great. I completely agree with you, and that's an area which India probably has a lot to do, and we can, as there is that opportunity to be grabbed with. There is a lot of opportunity there. My next question, I'll probably direct it to Ritu and Vineet, because they come from the brand marketing background. Since both of you would have had a lot of experience in leveraging gaming advertising, or at least you have been thinking about it somewhere or the other. What were your objectives? If you have tried it out, what were your objectives, and what are the kind of what are the kind of impact that you have experienced using this particular medium? Maybe Vineet, would you want to start off with what your experience has been? Have you,
Yeah,
let me put
absolutely.
it this way, have you been using it more content, or it has been inventory buys? How have you been looking at gaming inventory?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have actually branched out from just ad placement. So not just only media buys. In fact, we're looking at much more curated experiences for our audience. Something that the earlier panelist Rashmi actually was talking about it as well. In fact, during New Year's time, we launched a game under our flagship brand Budweiser called Conquer 2020 that offered individuals an opportunity to kickstart 2021 on a new note. And this was a completely native route. We created a game from scratch in partnerships with Underdogs Gaming Studio, Aqua, Dominatrix, Animal, some of the agencies that we worked to create this game. And it was a very friendly refresh on how collectively all of us overcame a lot of challenges in the year 2020. And the game was divided across a lot of levels, people challenging each other. And we engaged a lot of gaming enthusiasts via contests, rewards, and merchandise on our social media platforms. Not only that, we partnered with a lot of renowned gaming influencers, communities on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well to do that. And the results were pretty amazing. I know in a very short time, and a lot of fans, not only from a media impressions perspective, but we got a lot of user-generated content coming out of the whole thing, right? People actually making videos and telling, that can you beat me on this score? Can you beat me on that score? So it was very good, and people talking about it, and people were actually advocating on their social media platforms, telling us that, hey, I've clocked this score. Can you beat this, right? And we were giving pretty good rewards to a lot of these people, and this actually from a brand side. After doing this, we became the most talked about brand in our category in December. We got around 1.5 lakh people playing out this game in a span of 7 to 10 days. We delivered around 100 million impressions. Not only that, we actually were trending on Twitter for top 5 for some hours as well. So we really we leverage this, because in-game advertising and in-ad placements we do, but not at a big scale. As I said earlier as well, we are trying to understand this world of gaming. But whatever we believe, I think our brands need to not just be a logo up there; they need to play a much better role in the narrative of the games. And that was the intent. We wanted to engage with our guys, engage with our audience, who are a fanatic fan base of playing games, and the results are speaking. And it was a very positive start. And I'm pretty sure a lot of our campaigns, a lot of our brands will now catch up to this bandwagon of gaming in particular.
Great, Vinny. That's a great story, and I'm sure that that's something which should get more audience so that more people try out these things. Ritu, maybe you also have some experience like that, where you have specifically had some objective and probably met through gaming.
Absolutely, Jay. So to answer your question, how have we been using it? So I would say it's been a combination. So we experimented with both. regular display ads, as well as trying to do something which is more immersive, which is more engaging. And that, I think, is the beauty, because the platform allows you to do that. If you're able to place yourself in a relevant and an intrusive manner, which is very integrated to the way the game is being played. And I'm going to pick up one example that we ran through. So our, given the category that we deal with, and it's a high price category, particularly when you're talking about gaming PCs, and there is innovation and technology that goes behind these products. And obviously the objective as a, as a brand marketer in that space is to highlight those aspects or those features of innovation that a gamer would be able to appreciate in a manner, because the whole objective is, like I said, to help them upgrade from a 5-inch screen to a 15-inch screen, right? So G series actually has our Inspiron range of gaming products. G series something has a game shift key. What that does is, at whenever it's required, at the touch of a key, it allows you to boost your processor power for you to get that advantage that you need at that particular point of time. And we had this thing going with Gameloft, where what we did is, Gameloft again has a nitro booster where the car can get that added speed. When you need it at a particular point of time, it has the advantage of that speed that the car can get. So it was a very beautiful interplay that came in together, and we identified those moments and opportunities within those various layers and stages of the game where these two things could go hand in hand. So it could be at the start of the game when the race is just about beginning, or it was also at a point of time when they had access to more game money or game tokens, because it was at the end of it all about gamification. And we know that gamers really don't mind those interventions, because it gives them the opportunity. And I think somebody said that they like the part that it gives them either the free plays, or it gives them the gaming money or the points therein. So it kind of is linked back to it. So we identified those layers within the game to see how, and relevant places where it could go, because that's where it's a very seamless integration that was possible. And I would say this entire thing really paid off very well for us, because the kind of engagement rate that we saw in the as part of that particular integration was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I think as a marketer, I would want to be very conscious of the way that we are doing these things, because it should not be something which is just there for eyeballs. Nothing wrong with that strategy per se, depending upon what your brand's objective is. But for us, it was not just about eyeballs, but it was actually about bringing alive an innovative concept and an innovation feature, which in this case was the game shift key, and how that very beautifully tied back to a particular concept of the game itself. So that's one of the ways that we have done this. The other thing that I would say is we've actually taken gaming a little differently. And as Rashmi, spoke about a 10-year-old talking about saying, I want to be a gamer, and you spoke about your son. I have a 6-year-old nephew. He wants to build games. He doesn't want, he plays games, but he wants to build games. So we have this, and we know that with the youth in this country, that there is this desire to kind of go into that. We have this program. It's an online and offline kind of a social engagement program called the Futurist. And we know that gaming as an industry has a lot of pull that people have. At the same time, there's a fair amount of enigma that exists around it, because the most obvious choice, of course, is I want to go and be a gamer, a professional gamer. All right, that's fine. What after that? And what are the other opportunities that exist in this industry surrounding that, in that entire ecosystem? So we actually we've been partnering with, Ankit Pant, who's a professional esports player there. So we've partnered with him, and we've had these mentorship sessions and programs for the youth, particularly talking to them and about all the opportunities that exist in the gaming ecosystem for them to grow and develop as a profession, if that is really what their passion is right now, and they would want to convert that to their profession later on. What are the other avenues that exist beyond just being a professional gamer? What are the other? It could be a shoutcaster, you could be a game developer, you could be anything. So there was this whole experience that was, kind of like a program that was run for them. So it's the idea is to tell you that there are these two very different opportunities that the industry offers from a gaming perspective, depending upon what your brand's objective is. I think the opportunities, like I said, it's opportunities. It's there for us to leverage and see.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ritu. That's quite insightful, especially the part where you're trying to do something which is more relevant for the community as well from the development perspective. Moving on, so let me just take this. We have a paucity of time here, so I'll need to be a little quick with some of the other questions that I have, which I want to put across to the panelists. The next thing which I wanted to talk about was, or wanted to understand the views of the particular panel. Sorry, I think there was a crosstalk. So essentially, one of the key things in advertising is obviously audience. So getting the right audience, getting the right kind of segments that you want to target your advertising to. And gaming as such, as a medium, also provides the opportunity. Probably rightfully so, because of the kind of the kind of game, the kind of games, the genre of games, all matter, and all also talk about the kind of people who are playing it. Essentially, how have we been able to utilize that segment? How have we been able to take audiences into it? This question I would like to pose it to Nilesh, because you might have cut across multiple segments and categories when you have planned out some of your campaigns. How do you take that? How do you look at the different segments and audiences?
Right, Jay. So I think being a performance marketeer, right, our experience is complementing what I think Ritu and Vineet and Ashwin said, right? It's more closing and making that final purchase from the awareness that is built through the kind of type of advertisement or engagement through ads that were done earlier, right, through those innovative mediums. Now, here I think there are, like we discussed, I mean, money follows the eyeballs, and gaming is in a way perfect combination of a right audience at the right time. And now we need to hit with in a way, right messaging and a communication and ad format. Like I earlier mentioned, I think the ad format, especially the rewarded videos and dynamic ads, are the crucial ones that I think we have experimented with. And now we have a zero static ad policy, right? So that's how we are going about conveying to the audience. Now on the audience side, right, especially for food tech, for example Swiggy, or for entertainment like Woot and gaming companies like Bazi, right, the 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 gaming targeting and closing, like installs and engagement, right, the purchases and so on, have worked phenomenally well. So for example Swiggy, I think we have seen almost a third incremental audience with about a fifth better cost, right? Bazi, we saw like 3x jumps in the customer engagement and the CTR. So the gaming inventory, right, is something that now forms about 2/5 of our programmatic buys that Suprati does. So that's a very big, right, as a evolved marketeers, right, that we represent. It's an important one, and we have Dentsu Marketing Cloud that is built to form a layer on top of this audience, right, to get better insights and then be able to do better targeting as obviously we do a multi-touch point marketing, right, for our advertisers.
Right, Nilesh. I think that makes a lot of sense when you're telling me that you have the audience layer on top of it, and it's quite insightful when you're saying that almost 2/5 or almost close to about 20% of your entire
40%, yeah, 2/5, yeah, 40%
is on gaming. That's quite that's eye-opening actually.
Yeah, it's very big.
We've been all talking about the positives about gaming. I just wanted to understand from the panel, are there any concerns when you actually, as advertisers, can you tell me one or two concerns that come up in your mind when you're looking at medium? Maybe you can, Nilesh, you can start with that.
Maybe I'll go
Okay,
because
go
this
ahead.
is because this is really top of mind right now. Because see, a lot of the games obviously have content which could be uh, by nature violent. They could be blood, they could be gore, all of that, right? And in fact, a lot of the games, esport games, if I look at, for example, CS:GO, these are all extremely aggressive games.
Right, absolutely.
And that's clearly a challenge for a lot of brands. Do I want to be seen in an environment like that? Do I want to be seen? So from a brand perspective. The second is obviously, what's the messaging that I, as a brand, responsible brand, what is the message I'm giving to the society? I think that's the second question that comes in the mind of the brands. Do I want young, impressionable kids or even adults like us to, in a way, be addicted to some of these things? These are questions that are coming. So, uh, how do you leverage the audiences that are coming with the whole gaming experience, and at the same time, how do you stay away from content which could be not the right kind of content to associate with? I think that's going to be a challenge, because unfortunately a lot of the content which does get the eyeballs may not be, typically brand safe.
Got it. Got it. So brand safety is one of the concerns. Maybe I think maybe Vineet could share something, because you have two sides to look at it. One is the
Yeah,
brand safety from a brand regulatory perspective, and also the
absolutely,
design. So
absolutely.
you can share what
No,
you.
one. In fact, something we faced as well, considering we launched, as I said earlier, it launched our own game as well. I think one of the thing is, is gaming piracy in particular, and lot of these channels used by the producers of the games for interacting with players in particular can be hacked as well, and a lot of third parties can do that hacking. So you need to be mindful of a lot of data leaks and privacy information. A lot of our consumers into, if not done rightly, can also have a lot of concerns. We also, as I said, faced something, but we obviously, it was a very, very small part. But these are the concerns. One of the big concerns that you should be really, really careful about. And the second part is actually something that Ashwin also touched about. That the gamers can be heterogeneous in terms of age brackets, especially with regards to the age. I mean, some can be quite young, some could be older as well. So addressing to a very specific audience is what you're looking at, and that sharp targeting could be one of the concerns as well. That are you doing that spillage as well to some people who might not be, you should not target your brands to a certain audience. That also is another concern. So first, in the game piracy and the hacking part, and secondly, just a sharp targeting that marketers in particular or media managers look up to, whether that's happening or not. So that's the other one.
Great. Thanks. I think that makes sense, especially targeting piece really does become a challenge if you are cutting across multiple segments, and if you want sharp targeting, yes. Ritu, maybe you have some thoughts to add on this as well, some of the concerns that you might have come across.
Jayesh, if I have to pick one, and based on what Ashwin and Vineet said, I would bring it back to brand safety,
Absolutely.
both in terms of the context in which the ad is appearing and your brand is appearing, and
Right.
also the audience to which you're speaking. So yes, there is a targeting challenge, but I'm extending that targeting challenge also in the in the realm of brand safety, because the right content to the right audience as a brand and in the right context is what you would ideally want. So
Absolutely.
all these three things have to fit together. So I would probably put brand safety as the biggest one.
Biggest concern. Great. Thanks. That's wonderful. Maybe Nilesh, you have. This is a topic which I would like to hear from everybody on, because there could be concerns which we have not addressed. Nilesh, is there something which you have come across apart from brand safety, targeting, and probably the hacking piece?
Yeah, there are a couple, right? So one is around acquisition cost, right? Again, from a performance marketeer point of view, and a programmatic, from a bottom of the funnel, tend to be more expensive compared to the traditional mediums like Google and the Facebooks of the world. So, and only way for advertisers for now, at least, to justify this investment is to get an incremental growth and an incremental cost of acquisition lens. So that's number one. The number two is, I think there are certain platforms that specializes in gaming inventory purchases, has a certain limitations on where you can land the kind of ad clicks to, right? So for example, only Play Stores, and therefore certain advertisers want slightly more exotic, for example, app download through an APK. Those kind of support isn't available at the moment, right? So those are slightly more nuanced, but gaming from a performance standpoint still yet to realize its full potential from a cost and as well as certain platform limitation point of view.
Great. Thanks, Nilesh. I think we have run out of time. This panel will have to end prematurely. So let me put it this way. Let me try to summarize the discussion. It's great to once again have. It was great to interact with all of you. Some great insights which have come up. The good things about gaming that I've learned over here in this panel is basically the scale, the kind of engagement that can be done, the kind of differentiated things that we can do on gaming as a platform. And the challenges obviously boils down to basically brand safety, albeit in multiple realms of content as well as context, and as well as the cost somewhere where what Nilesh was talking about. I think thanks everyone. That was a great discussion, and I myself am going back a richer man in terms of my understanding of gaming. Look forward to hearing. I would have taken some questions, but we have already overshot the time. So I leave it to if there are any questions, maybe you can reach out specifically to the organizers, and the questions can be directed.
In the paucity of time, we won't be taking questions, but thank you, Jayesh, for steering this really interesting conversation. And thank you to all our panelists for taking out the time and being here and sharing your insights here with us. Thank you so much once again.
Thanks a lot, Jayesh and Kathy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Jayesh.
Thank you so
Kathy.
much.
Thank you.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to dive straight into our next panel discussion, which is going to be chaired by Dr. Anurag Batra, Chairman, Editor-in-Chief, Exchange for Media Group. We also have illustrious panelists on this discussion. We have with us Roland Landers, President, All India Gaming Federation, Naman Jawar, Senior Vice President, Strategy and Operations, MPL, Ishan Arya, Co-founder, the Esports Club, Philip Wong, Head of Marketing, Esports Players League, Dinesh Sharma, Business Head, Commercial PC and Smartphone System Business Group, ASUS India. They'll be talking about decoding the online gaming market in India. I'm sure you are going to be glued onto your screens. Let's welcome our panelists and moderator. A very warm welcome to all of you. Over to you, Dr. Batra.
Kathy, good afternoon. It's a power-packed panel. And next time we shouldn't do a panel discussion. We should actually play games with the panelists. I think it is very boring to do a discussion. Roland, what kind of a forum is this? We're talking about esports and we are not playing a game, but there's always a next time. Today we'll do a conversation about it, but maybe next time we'll actually be experiential about it and actually play games. And I mean it when I say it, you know, at the end of the real action is in gaming. Talking not necessarily doesn't produce more gamers or more revenues, but it is important to evangelize this growing domain. And we have today panelists who represent this growing domain, and they come from various stakeholder ecosystems. So let me bring in Roland Landers, who's the president at the All India Gaming Federation, Ishan Arya, who's the co-founder and head of business of the, he's founded a community of e-gamers. We have Dinesh Sharma, who represents, a manufacturer and owner of hardware for the digital economy, so to say. We have Naman Jawar, who's the vice president strategy at the MPL. I did a conversation with Sai 2 hours back. And last but not the least, we have Philip Wong, who's again very active in the e-gaming space. Kathy, only problem, we have no women. We should have also women in gaming. We should do a separate session on women in gaming. But let me start by asking Roland. Roland, it's a domain which is growing very fast. This 1 week has been very good for gaming as a business with the IPO of Nazara. Clearly, if there is interest in its IPO, it is because of the growing nature of the domain and the fact that we are still underpenetrated, and hence over the next few years, we are only likely to grow. So I would like you to start by making few predictions about the future. Where is the gaming industry headed in India? And what is the top 2-3 things that will happen to the gaming industry as we go forward?
Hi, Anurag. Yeah, thank you for having me. Hi, Naman and my other panelists.
Hi, Roland.
Hi.
So, so we've already, in a good place over the last 3-4 years, actually. The sector itself is not too old. It's only about 12 years old. I'm talking about the online skill gaming industry. And, what we've seen over the last 3-4 years has been clearly phenomenal growth, really hockey growth. And that's because of the, digital infrastructure and fundamentals being in place. Obviously, where we are looking at today, if I have to mention some numbers that we've just shared with EY for the e4m report also, is that we are currently at about 320 plus million gamers in the country, and this year the turnover for the sector will be in the excess of $1 billion. So clearly, absolutely bang on as far as the projections were concerned over the last 3-4 years. If I have to look into the near future, this is going to grow. Next month onwards, there'll be the IPL again, which we know, is the reason for a huge uptick in the number of gamers and participation, especially in the fantasy gaming side format. So companies like MPL now look forward to a huge upside. As far as the business is concerned, also this is going to grow in accordance with the last 3-4 years. So there'll be easily in the excess of 25-30% growth for the overall skill gaming sector. Obviously, there are some challenges which I'm sure you'll bring up later, but we need definite support. The way it is structured is a little that is unwanted as far as the country is concerned. But I'm sure that with our interactions at the AGF with several stakeholders, we are hopeful that that needed support will come.
Okay, Roland, let me bring in Naman first, then bring in Dinesh, Ishan, and Philippe. Naman, as a leading player, give us what you see happening in the future.
Right. No, so I think industry is very, very well placed, right? You are seeing on both sides, right? Whether it is developers or whether it is consumers or even from the investing community. You've already mentioned the likes of Nazara going IPO. So even the retail investors have shown a lot of confidence on the industry, right? So I think the critical success factors for scaling and growth is out there. I would see a lot of developments which are going to happen on multiple fronts, right? One, of course, we would see a lot more Indian game developers kind of making it big to the overall global scenario, right? I think that's going to be definitely a mark shift change, right? That's from the first side. The second, I would say, is the scale of competitive tournaments is going to really go high up, right? We would see one of those years which will be an inflection point for online skill gaming, both on the casual side and also on the pro side as well, right? So that's the second big, I would say, trend that we can expect. The third is, of course, in terms of from a brand perspective as well, right? This industry is going to create a lot more opportunity on the brand monetization side as well, right? And that's something which is already happening, whether it is live sports or even like the online gaming platforms. But that's only going to kind of scale up as well. So I would say I think these three really look poised to be in India. We do see, I've already mentioned about developers, but even the platform play, someone like MPL as well, and a few of the other platforms that have also come, would start to kind of have a much more global play as well. So that's again, I think a fourth big trend that we can kind of see in the future.
Thank you, Naman, for being specific. Ishan, again, something that started as a hobby became into a full-time profession and a community that grew. Give us a sense of what is likely to happen in the near future.
I think, we're moving towards a place where, esports competitive video games, they're not looked down upon, right? They become very much part and parcel of everyday entertainment. And that's something that has been really boosted throughout this pandemic with more and more people looking for alternate means of entertainment and engagement. This digital medium has really filled that void and thrived. And we've seen that with more and more people participating, more and more people watching events. We started off, we're just about 18 months in. At the beginning of the pandemic, we had about anywhere between 100 and 200,000 views a month across our esports campaigns. Fast forward to Feb 2021, we are crossing 1.5 to 2 million views every 2.5, 3 weeks across our campaigns, right? So that's the kind of growth we've seen. That's the kind of interest being generated here. And now I think the main challenge is, to find a way to create a sustainable platform that gives these players reasons and incentives to keep coming back, therefore creating value for advertisers, sponsors, investors.
Fantastic. And, one of the things is now, I've heard all three of you and the two more panelists come in, is that it is growing, there is legitimacy, and clearly these are early years. So these are the three things I'm hearing from all of you. And considering even fantasy gaming is becoming mainstream, it was looked upon as betting. Let me say it as it is, but it is getting some kind of acceptance, if I may use the word, and that is also kind of spurring new users. And let me give you two data points. One from investment. The stock market had 2 crore retail investors a year back. Today, the stock market has more than 4 crore retail investors. So what has happened in 20 years has happened in 12 months. If you look at the overseas US retail market, the e-tailing was almost 16% of the overall retail in the US, which is the most advanced e-commerce market. That became 27%. So 16% in 20 years and 11% in 12 months. So clearly, if these numbers are happening in e-tailing, they're happening in the stock market, the e-gaming domain cannot be far behind. So let me now bring Philippe and then bring in Dinesh. Philippe, your opening comments, because you look at India, but you look at markets beyond India. So you have a view which is both international and also understands what's happening in India and Asia Pacific. Philippe?
Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Anurag. And thank you all the panelists for having me. I'm Philip Wang from Esports Players League, ESPL, head of marketing here. Well, we're actually a global esports tournament platform that provides across multiple regions. So yes, we have experience with multiple regions, but I think when it comes to the real money gaming, fantasy gaming area, I think Roland would really be the expert on this area. But for ESPL in particular, we're focused on building that ecosystem. Ishan, he mentioned that as well. And through our platform, we actually provide that. So for basically what we're aiming to do is build and focus on the grassroots esports tournaments and build that that kind of platform for players who aspire to reach that esports dream. So I think in that area, what we've seen, especially for in a global sense, here in India, the community is certainly very very competitive, very exciting. But in Southeast Asia, what we've seen, for example, in some of the regions that we're in, the communities are a lot more mature depending on the game title, as well as the country as well. The competitive spirit here is strong, but I think it's good that there's talent development with certain organizations like we've seen Team Mahi and Global Esports nurture pro talent. But I think a bigger thing that is important is to have more tournaments and more competitions for teams. So I think we have seen how the play style and strategy of teams can skew to a specific direction. So we have observed that teams get used to competing against the same top teams again and again. So having regional and international tournaments helps expose teams to different competition. And we have seen things like that in Southeast Asia, where a lot of the tournaments are region-wide. So an example of that is the HyperX Elite Cup, which we hosted and organized in Southeast Asia. And that brought over more than 1,500 over teams, right? And we do this by expanding to more regions. And here in India, we're working with amazing partner PFG Esports or Paytm First Games. And through that same vein of providing players with competition beyond their own borders, our initiatives like our ESPL Amateur Championship, This is our yearly global tournament focused on providing amateur teams with a platform to broaden their experience and expose their esports teams to international audiences. So I think in that sense, building a lot of the bridges and allowing an opportunity for a lot of the teams to also play internationally is an area that I see going forward for India as well. There's been great teams and talent there, but yeah, that's what I see for India in comparison to global areas.
Fantastic, Philip. Now let me bring in Dinesh. Dinesh,
thank you.
Clearly, India is growing at a pace that we hadn't imagined, and we expected COVID to slow down our business and industries. But whether it comes to gaming, it's one of those sectors that has actually got accelerated. Give us a sense of what's happening in this sector through some data points and some trends that you have observed in your role.
Sure, Anurag, thanks a lot for this opportunity. So hi, everyone, and a big hi to all the co-panelists, including nice meeting Ishan again. So a couple of key points, Anurag. We are the largest gaming brand in the world when it comes to ROG, which is a sub-brand within the ASUS portfolio, which is called Republic of Gamers. So we are globally number one, both on PC side as well as smartphone side when it comes to gaming. And in both PCs as well as smartphones, we are seeing a phenomenal growth when it comes to gaming-centric products. So, you know, when you actually look at products which are designed for gaming, they are pretty much different from your standard designed products. We're clearly seeing a good growth out there. The factors which are driving the growth have been, you know, like kind of highlighted by a couple of co-panelists already. One of the key, trends that we are seeing is that, when the pandemic occurred, obviously, youth wanted to connect with each other socially, and gaming became a perfect platform to, kind of get together and virtually play with each other. So, in fact, I would like to say that esports is kind of trending in a manner that it will become as big as cricket at a point of time, because, when we were young, we used to, kind of go out and play cricket every day. What are the youth doing today? They are actually playing an esport game while they are free, while they are traveling. It's a great stress buster. So as more and more AAA plus titles are also further coming to larger democratized product segments, which are like, let's say, smartphones, apart from, like having those AAA titles available on PC and consoles, you are seeing a much faster penetration of multiplayer gaming. And also one of the big changes which happened in the Indian market is the availability of 4G at very, very economical prices once Jio came into the play, and it kind of democratized high-speed data networks. It led to huge growth in gaming. And one big trend shifter which is also further coming up is essentially 5G. So once 5G comes into the play, and already like the top-end gaming devices and flagships are obviously 5G enabled, you will have further capability to give even better immersive experience on smartphone gaming, okay, than what is available even now. And therefore, that will lead to further surge in gaming adoption, gaming consumption, the time that is being spent on gaming. In fact, all these stats, KPIs, if you were to look at it from an industry perspective, are actually on a very high double-digit growth phase as far as India is concerned. So therefore, you've got, like if you were to look at all the trends, they are pointing in a direction which indicates that gaming is here to grow quite big when it comes to both smartphones as well as when it comes to PCs. Again, with some data points, on the smartphone side, we operate, let's say, in the top end of the market where a product sells at about 40K, 45K price points. Even at these price points, by being in a gaming-centric product, which is ROG Phone, we've been able to grow this year at a much bigger number as compared to last year. And again, this year, we're planning to grow much better than even, so let's say when I was comparing this year, last year, I'm talking about, let's say, the financial year, okay? And then if you look at the next year, next financial year, let's say, which is between April to March again, we would again expect a very big growth rate out there as well. On the PCs front, when it comes to gaming-centric PCs, again, on the ROG brand and the Tough brand, the two brands that we have, we've actually been growing with very, very high double digits. And also we are seeing the market expand at the segment of gaming PCs in India, expand at a very high double-digit growth rate. So both on the PC side as well as smartphone side. You're seeing phenomenally high growth, despite the fact that there were some changes which happened recently in the past in the smartphone ecosystem with a major game title going off line. But despite that, the consumers just shifted and they adopted other available options. And still I can say the indulgence and the fact that they spend equal amount of time gaming, that continues. It's just that the game changes. That's all. So that's what we've observed from our side.
Thank you, Dinesh. Now let me start this time reverse. Let me start with Philippe. Philippe, really, when we look at the esports market, we look at fantasy sports, we look at real money gaming, you look at all these segments. Clearly, international titles are very big. The Indian game developer ecosystem is growing, and with the interest in this sector, with the money flowing in this, most importantly, people getting passionate, you'll see more and more games coming out of India, hopefully, and dominating the market. And the beauty about the games is that they are not language specific, they are international, So do you see Indian games? I want to ask you this question because, and I wanted do you see Indian games becoming mainstream when it comes to global success?
I think it's certainly possible. And the talent is there, certainly, for sure. So we've seen multiple games come out, especially with the hype of esports. I myself, when I was really, really young, that was the number one thing that I just told my parents every day: esports is going to be huge. Esports is going to be huge. And now it is, right? We're looking at 500 million over audiences. Whether it's going to be just a casual game that's being developed in India or an esports game specifically, there is a market for it. We've seen games, for example, in Indonesia, where we've done tournaments, for example, a new title done by Indonesian developers called Lokapala, for example, and we've done a tournament for them before to kind of launch into that sector. So I think, there's the opportunity there. And if developers want to try their hand at, they got an esports title that they want to enter and to try it out, they can always speak to ESPL to have a look at that. But
that's a very diplomatic answer, Philippe, clearly. But let me start by asking Ishan this time. Ishan, how do we make sure that you talked about passion, you talked about acceptability, you talked about mainstreaming. How do you make sure that the Indian developer ecosystem produces titles that really go on to dominate in the world? Because that's how we will become a leader, both in terms of as a sport and both in terms of a business. And really, it will plow back into the ecosystem to grow to the ecosystem. What do you have to say to that?
I think the most important thing here is to just note the distinction between the two types of games, right? Indian developers are, very good at what they do. There have been a lot of standout titles of late. Raji, to name one in particular, that has been received extremely well overseas, right? So there's definitely no shortage of, talent and capabilities. However, taking that next step to producing, a full service game that needs to have a longer lifespan, that needs to have constant content updates, that has that crazy online multiplayer component to it, that requires a whole bunch of different skills and capabilities, which not a lot of developers, I would say, have that much experience in. And not to mention, it requires much more investment to put up the servers and support for a game like that. However, in India, being a country where the technology sector is growing at such a pace, we are one of the leading hubs where people look for developmental support. I certainly see it as a possibility, but it's not an easy roadmap to get there to compete with these
You're saying it's very
polished
competitive.
titles.
It is
Yes.
super competitive.
Yes, you need a lot of polish,
Okay.
you need a lot of features, and you need a lot of constant support to really make it in that industry and field.
Okay. Let me bring in Dinesh, Roland, and Ishan into the conversation again. First, you, Roland. Roland, how do we become a global phenomena? Indian titles have started to do well. How do we become a global phenomena in the overall arena?
Yeah, I'm not totally equipped to answer that, but yeah, I think my co-panelists Ishan, Philip, and even Naman actually, there've been a lot of MPL was started by game developers, and they're doing so well. So really, what I think at a very high level, we all know that globally is that Indians are very good in technology and creativity. So if you combine the two, obviously, I think it is quite possible to. What I've heard, at my role here is that a lot of game development is now happening in India. It's not just outsourced, but these are Indians working on globalized teams, and they are big studios who set up shop here. And I'm sure with that kind of experience of co-working together, there will be products. Some of the panelists mentioned about certain esport formats that are doing well. I know of certain cricket games that are doing exceedingly well. I'm sure Naman will be better equipped to answer, but that is my take, Anurag, on this particular question.
Naman, why don't you answer this, and then we'll bring in Dinesh to give his perspective.
Right, right. No, I think, see, let's look at it in terms of why we are now kind of well placed as well, right? I mean, earlier the dominant models around monetization purely were kind of, I think, predominantly reliant on ad monetization, or to a certain extent in-app purchases, right? Which then made sense for creating games, largely that can kind of make the survival, if I can call it, for the developers, right? And that is now kind of changing, right? Our panelists talked about esports. There's of course like competitive gaming on a real money gaming, skill based gaming as well, right? Which has again come as a new monetization model, right? And that has definitely kind of enabled developers to think about scale. Now, when you have that kind of scale in terms of monetization, you can think about large scale development as well, right? Because the talent is out there, right? You have the right art talent, you have the right game design talent, you have the right product management talent to be out there, right? What was needed was the right impetus in terms of investment, a right distribution model, and also right monetization model, right? Which with the coming of platforms like MPL, we've created that ecosystem that can enable these developers to think big. And I think that's markedly one of the biggest change that the industry has seen. What else would actually also enable this? There's a lot of while we see bunch of stakeholders giving it legitimacy, I think there is also pockets of perception that is not really kind of working in the favor of the industry, right? Which again kind of impacts the developer itself at the end of the day, right? Because you're talking about an industry that if it has clarity in terms of policy, in terms of certain regulations, then you're talking about job creation, you're talking about Indian developers making a mark globally. But that also is critical in the home turf to make sure that the sunrise industry does see scale not just in India but also globally.
Okay, Dinesh, your point of view on how to get India to dominate and have a large part and grow this ecosystem in India, even much more than what it has grown now.
Sure. Enough. See, firstly, like if you look at the top, at least on the smartphone side, if you look at the top esport gaming titles in the world, okay, India is a prime market for them. Because in terms of installed base of customers, whether you look at the monthly active numbers, or let's say, like installed base of customers from India on these games, they are running in excess of 100 million consumers. So let's say if as Roland earlier spoke about the fact that there are about 320 million gamers in India who would be playing any kind of a game on a smartphone. If you were to look at the big titles, they had installed base of let's say upwards of 70, 80 million for sure. And if you were to look at the top three titles and you were to look at the combined install base in India, it would actually exceed 100 million. And these games that I'm talking about are very immersive games, which are apt for esports. Of course, Indians typically, prefer the first player shooter format, and we've seen that format really do exceedingly well when it comes to adoption of games. So from an ecosystem perspective, Indian developers are very close to the Indian consumers in terms of understanding their need, and they have a very large domestic market readily available to them, comprising of more than 100 million, quite serious gamers. And if you look at the monthly active base also of very serious gamers, they would typically exceed a number of 35 to 40 million in India. Now, this is a very healthy, established ecosystem available for Indian game developers to capitalize upon because they can understand the needs better being local and try and see how they can actually innovate and come up with great, phenomenal games which might appeal to this audience. And the other good part is that if they are able to appeal to this audience, there is a very large global audience which is localized, in marketing terms, if I were to call it. And this lookalike audience would also, like kind of adopt, what these Indian gamers are adopting, because Indian gamers are pretty much adopted international titles for reasons well covered by our other co-panelists before in terms of the kind of tech and investment that is required to create. So for Indian developers, this is a great opportunity that they can leverage. The good part for them is that 4G is very well established out there. 5G is coming up. The device ecosystem, which is required for supporting good quality of games, is also accelerating in terms of penetration very, very fast. And they have a large base of, high performance smartphones and PCs available to them to capitalize upon. So there's huge opportunity which Indian developers should make use of. From our perspective, also we had, let's say, for example, partnership with Unity, which is one of the gaming engines, for our products to give additional capabilities on our products. Now, when we were working with Unity, India was also one of the key focus markets for us to do developer meets, and we were doing that, which means there is already a strong base of and focus by even gaming engines for the Indian market. So I think the Indian developers have a very good fertile home ground that they should capitalize upon and make use of this opportunity.
Thank you. Now let me bring in Roland. Roland, one of the things is policy risk. How do you bring policy consistency to this industry? Because the more policy consistency you bring in, the more investments it will attract. It will attract legitimate big players apart from entrepreneurial young players who really who have created this domain. So how do you make sure you bring policy certainty and in what areas? And the other question is about creating content in Indian languages which can bring a new set of users. As you unlock the value of Indian language gaming content that possibly can bring in the next 100 million, 200 million users. So on these two, I would like your comments, Roland.
Yeah, so we'll take the policy thing first. Obviously, at the age of, we've been at it for the last 5 years. And, gaming is a state subject. However, the business is entirely digital and online, and hence there are, issues definitely. All the stakeholders, barring policy, obviously, and mind you, the industry is self-regulated, like we do at the AGF for the sector. The thing is that despite that, it has grown, such humongous levels. Obviously, it's a new sector, it's a sunrise sector, and that is why, OTT before us, or even media entertainment before us, television broadcasting, have been self-regulated for the longest time. But obviously, we've been approached by a lot of central ministries. We worked, consultative manner with them, and they are very eager to support the industry, because it has demonstrated in the last 3-4 years that here's a sector that can really add value in terms of job creation, in terms of the taxation to the exchequer and things like that. Now, but the fact of the matter is it's a state subject, and then different states interpret online skill gaming differently, and that's where the issue is. Obviously, as part of our mandate, we work with several states. It's work in progress. We continue to do that. And most of the time it is a lack of understanding of the sector itself. India is uniquely positioned in that way because in other countries they don't have this differentiation between games of scale and otherwise, and that is why things are a little things get blurred, and that's why, as you began saying in the beginning, that fantasy sports was equated with something, but that's the reason why. Now I think from the other stakeholder communities, like be it investors, be it gamers who are adopting gaming practices, all of that, there's been absolutely no problem at all. Number of gamers growing year on year. I'm recently we did a report with Maple Capital Advisors, and there's been in the excess of 400 million worth of M&A that has happened in the sector over the last 3 to 4 years. So absolutely no problem, confidence from the investor community. It's just that definitely we need to look at some national policy, and we are working in that direction, which can mitigate this problem that comes from different interpretations from various states. That I think is the answer to the first question. Uh, uh, the second one, obviously, you began by saying, gaming is agnostic, language agnostic. I believe that, and hence.
Yes, that is true, but that is more in terms of a certain kind of audience. But beyond a certain kind of audience, we need to bring in a larger audience. Then possibly.
So yeah, so Anurag, how it is that obviously when you're looking at content or content around gaming, then obviously I think that when you get into the regional languages and all, there's a huge audience that can be brought into gaming. Definitely they can be, but really where we focus our interests on are in the subscription led or transactional side of gaming, and there I believe because it is not looking at advertising as a source of revenue and creating content around it. I think this form of transactional gaming is really a language agnostic, and it is shown, demonstrated that year on year there's been a healthy double-digit growth in in the number of gamer uptake.
Fantastic. Now, our conference is called Game On. To keep the game on for the next 2-3 years and take the game to a next level, I would want to get a closing comment from each one of you on what is that one thing you are doing in your area of influence, in what you are doing to make sure that the gaming pie grows. So let me start with Philippe first and go around the house. Philippe?
Sure, thank you. Well, for ESPL, I think it's a matter of thinking global, but going local. So what we do at the end of the day is we work with country partners. We've got a franchise model with our platform that's easily sent throughout our regions that we're in. We're in Latin America, South Asia, Southeast Asia, MENA. We're in Scandinavia as well. And I think what we're doing at the moment is through our platform, connecting with multiple country partners who already have an existing community. For example, here in India, we have Paytm First Games has amazing large community of gamers who are looking to play esports games in particular as well, and engaging with them and connecting them with our larger audience that we are present in the multiple regions that we're in. So what we're doing is connecting players across the world through our platform and giving them that zero to hero journey through our platform, hopefully.
Thank you, Philippe, for making the game global and believing in the power of partnerships. Ishan, what are you doing to be able to grow this sector? Not just your own sphere of influence, but in some way contributing to the growth of the overall sector.
Yeah. So I think the main objective here is to continue to provide opportunities, right? Because if you look at sports, there are leagues that run throughout the year. There are different levels of competition that players can sort of work their way through as they grow older, right? You've got your school levels, your local levels, district, state, then your amateur leagues, your semi-pro leagues, and then you get picked up by one of the lower divisions, and then you make your way up to the likes of the ISL. So that's what we want to try and create for esports by providing that platform, by providing that opportunity at several tiers. What this does is not only give them that recurring opportunity to own their skills and to improve, but also to try and create a sustainable job out of it, right? Somebody competing at an amateur or a semi-pro tier, they don't have to worry about competing with the best teams who are competing for a separate prize pool altogether. You look at most organizers, most events, it's just one jumble of teams. It's a free for all. The best comes, and you can probably pick out the names from on just one hand. who's going to walk away with 95% of the money, right? We are trying to change that entire approach, change that ecosystem to ensure at every level of competition there is enough incentive for players, so that once there are more players, there is more interest, there are more fans, there are more viewers, and that creates more value for your sponsors, advertisers, and investors.
And Ishan, with the possibility, I mean, esports have already been included in Asian Games. There is a very, very real chance very soon that they may be part of next year's Olympic Games. And if that happens, then clearly there's nothing more enthralling and engaging than watching a competitive sport. And e-gaming is possibly made for a screen, whether a television screen or a mobile screen on an iPad. The format of the game is such that it attracts audiences. It is exhilarating to be part of it by watching it and commenting on it. So clearly, that acceleration may take it to the next level. Dinesh and Naman, your final comments.
Yeah.
Dinesh first.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So first of all, as a company, we give the best and the most ultimate weapons to the gamers. So whether it be like smartphones or PCs, we give you the most ultimate weapon. But apart from that, when it comes to building up the esport community, we are taking two major measures. One, we run this tournament called Battle of Gods, which is, for ROG users. And every weekend, we have an esport tournament for ROG phone users, which they can participate in. And we have a prize pool of 50,000 rupees plus for them, which they can win. And we've successfully conducted now already 2 leagues on Battle of Gods 1 and Battle of Gods 2 on the ROG phone. Plus, we've got similar kind of tournaments on the PC side. We've also started on the PC side an ROG Academy, to train gamers, who are really keen to become esport players on esports and make them capable to participate in the esport tournament. Given the clarity on PC, already on PC, ROG Academies started working with the teams that are being trained to become esport players. And on the smartphone side, we are, kind of waiting to see, how the ecosystem now moves forward, on which, let's say the game platform will become the mainstream esport game. And then we would like to initiate this even for smartphones. So we are working on upskilling, we are working on training of gamers, we are working on giving them the best equipment in the country and the best support to kind of embrace high quality esports and have, the best possible teams in the world and win global tournaments from India. We also partner very closely with the big gamers in India, and we take a lot of their input in terms of what we should do in terms of further product development. So you see us actually working with the top gamers on the smartphone ecosystem as well as the PC ecosystem, as well as a lot of tech gurus, who kind of work on product reviews, etc. Take their inputs to create the best gaming products even going forward. So this is a nutshell what we are doing.
Great. Naman, your final comments.
Sure. So 2 customers for MPL. I think a lot of focus is to kind of enable, both of them to scale. One, of course, is on the developer side. So working a lot with a bunch of Indian studios and Indian developer ecosystem to kind of help them scale at, with better and faster monetization, right? So that's one part of the focus area that MPL focuses on to really develop the developer community. The second, on the user side, I think what we've actively also taken is, a fair bit of focus on responsible gaming. We do understand the risks that are associated with the industry, and we want this to kind of, grow sustainably. So I think that's again a big charter that MPL has taken and has a clear focus in the next 2-3 years to promote responsible gaming. And on the third side is really to, kind of break the myths, right? We just went live with one of our sort of sensitization campaign, if I can call it, with Handa Pace, wherein he won one of the Olympic medals back in '96, and we have an Asian Games that is coming up in 22. And the idea there is that, look, I think the medals can be won in both fields, whether it is live sports or sort of virtual sports. And then this time, so it goes by the tagline called, Maidan Naya hai, but khel wahi, right? And that's the spirit that we want to kind of embrace and, promote this industry.
Thank you so much. We are talking to the pioneers of the gaming industry, catalysts who are making this sector vibrant and making it mainstream and making it exciting both for players, for audiences, for investors, for marketers, for all the stakeholders. So let me congratulate them and say the game is truly on. We're delighted that you could join the Exchange for Media Gaming Conference today. And while we are doing this virtually, hopefully next time around we'll do it in hybrid, a physical and a online model. Hybrid is a word that gets used a lot. I'm sure it'll get used in gaming too when it comes to large format gaming tournament. And clearly, the beauty about technology and digital is it helps you to scale up without geographical restrictions. And gaming has been a big beneficiary of COVID because the digital acceleration has really helped people get onto gaming and pursue their passion of gaming, and the extra time available to them, for some of them, it's gone into gaming. So clearly the game is on. Congratulations, Roland, for doing the work you've done for this sector over the last 4.5, 5 years. And I'm sure the work you've done in the last few years will manifest itself in the coming year. So I wish you luck, and I look forward to next time playing a game on our show with you. Thank you so much. God bless you, and back to you, Khyati.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Batra, and thank you to all our panelists. Thank you for taking out the time and being present here today at the first ever E4M Game On Online Gaming Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another day filled with eminent speakers, industry leaders who will talk about more onto the gaming industry in India. But before that, we would like to thank all our speakers for the day, our panelists, illustrious speakers who came in and gave us a brief overview on the online gaming industry of India. Ladies and gentlemen, before we close, we would definitely like to thank once again our partners for the event. As we all know, any event is not possible without the support of its partners. So we'd like to thank our co-powered by partner InMobi, driving real connections, and our co-partner for the event, India Today. Thank you so much to both our partners. We'd like to close this evening by showcasing their audio visuals. Thank you very much. This is Khyati Kawar, your host, signing off. I will see you all tomorrow.
Technology has always shaped how we communicate with one another. The wheel, the printing press, the Pony Express, the telegraph, the telephone, the computer, and mobile devices. Technology changes, yet one truth remains. We want our communications and interactions to be meaningful and have relevance. Today, however, driving real connections are easier said than done. But we help brands do that, to drive real connections. With our platform technology and exclusive mobile data, InMobi helps you understand, identify, engage, and acquire your customers. InMobi, driving real connections.
India is getting ready for its biggest esports championship. India Today Gaming presents Esports Premier League. 3 months, 8 teams, 1 championship. The battleground is ready. Are you? Do you have it in you? Can you be the next undisputed champion? Coming soon